Ladies and gentlemen, we're live on this Wednesday, the 3rd day of February 2016. We're going to go ahead and fade down the intro because we've got a huge broadcast, big developments on the election front, huge developments on the Zika virus front, being linked directly now by us today to the Rockefeller Foundation. Wait till this bombshell drops, and a lot more. But first, this key report from John Bound.
Well, America, if you haven't noticed, Middle Eastern and African refugees are raping, looting, and killing all over Europe. And the European establishment is condemning the citizens on their behavior, rather than that of the invading hordes of fraudulent young male refugees who claim to be fleeing war-ravaged hellholes. For years now, those refugees have been coming to America, but it hasn't been large cities like Washington, D.C. and San Francisco due to their high cost of living. It's smaller American cities that are being targeted to become refugee sanctuary cities, exactly as tiny European towns had been targeted. Rather than integrate all of the refugees into large cities where aid facilities are better funded and menial jobs may be more plentiful, the Obama administration has been directing pockets of the refugees into smaller to medium-sized American cities that are already struggling to survive. Cities like Missoula, Montana, Twin Falls, Idaho, and Stone Mountain, Georgia, a population of 6,025, where a huge boon to the economy is the tourism generated by the Stone Mountain carving of Confederate generals, the very historical monument the liberals want destroyed. It was revealed around this time last year by political analyst Susan Payne, who had inadvertently been allowed to attend an Obama White House conference call on the Syrian refugee strategy. Payne discovered that the intent of the Obama administration is to grow the Muslim seedling communities, in their words, into larger entities, eventually overtaking the smaller cities they had been given sanctuary in, as part of the greater plan to overtake the host nation. The Obama task force even discussed replacing the Thanksgiving holiday with Celebrate Immigrant Day by executive order. Their main directive being that these 15 million plus new Americans will replace the old Americans and grow as a separate nation within the United States. Obama established the Task Force on New Americans in November of 2014 in the wake of a complete breakdown of our immigration system under Obama's unconstitutional executive orders. As of today, there are well over 180,000 criminal illegal immigrants freely wandering around the United States, committing new crimes every day, according to ICE agents and members of Congress. Meanwhile, DHS Secretary Jay Johnson has issued an order to diminish aerial surveillance on the Texas border. This after Governor Abbott requested more surveillance last September, a request that was obviously ignored. The Rio Grande Valley has seen an increase of 115% in unaccompanied minors, while the El Paso border has increased by 300%. And over 28,000 Cubans entered the United States in 2015, twice the number the year before. America is no longer economically sound enough to cushion the blow of millions of refugees that actually hate everything we represent and our tax dollars pay for.
What have I got to talk to you about? What have I got to talk to you about?
What have you got to say about Islam and that, innit?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Yeah? So why didn't you say it now?
What do you want me to say?
Yeah?
It's ideology. It's got no place.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's got no place, bruv. I don't know what you like, bruv. You have about 100 you in a minute. You f***ing little chief.
And they are
the middle
allowed
class
to attack.
is aggressively shrinking. We've lost millions of jobs due to international trade deals. Cities are going bankrupt, and the national debt is at a record $19 trillion. Meanwhile, as 31 governors oppose the acceptance of Syrian refugees into their states, the remaining balance of our nation's officials are declaring their cities as sanctuaries at an alarming rate. Has the Paris massacre or the San Bernardino jihad been forgotten already?
We'll be back. Thank you for joining us, my friends. It is Wednesday, the 3rd day of February, 2016. We're going to be live for the next 4 hours, broadcasting across the planet and the world. Coming up, we have Austin Police Chief Art Aceveda in studio in the 2nd hour. And then Dr. Edward Group has come in from Houston with some amazing analysis and information dealing with Zika virus. And then David Knight will quarterback the 4th hour today. We'll break down what he's going to be doing right before he comes on, because they don't know till right when they come on what they're going to be covering, because while I'm busy on air tracking what's happening and covering the news, they're busy digging into the latest breaking information and analysis, as well as special reports. Then, of course, we come back 7 o'clock Central, InfoWars Nightly News as well, to cover whatever happens from 3 to 7 o'clock Central. Whatever's developed during that time period when big events happen, we just expand coverage with live coverage past 10 o'clock at night, and we are able to hire more investigative journalists, more reporters, more researchers. We will continue to add more and more live, fully produced, fully researched transmissions for you and your family. We are building it, and they are coming because the people are hungry for the truth. Now, I've talked a lot about this, but we've gone back into the archives with the Jakari Jackson report from last year, actually a year and a half ago, and Bill and Melinda Gates' statements and their own patents and their own research, as well as the Rockefeller Foundation, and are going to be putting together a very clear picture, confirming what Dr. Francis Boyle said here last Friday. In fact, we should probably just get the intro of his interview last Friday, where he talks about Zika for about 5 minutes, where he discusses top biological weapons experts that he's in consultation with. And, of course, he wrote the U.S. and UN Biological Weapons Treaty that was ratified back in the 90s. So that gives you an idea of the level of his gravitas. And he said, unquestionably, it is a bioweapon, and it's being race-specifically delivered. That means it's not race-specific, and then it only attacks certain races of humans, certain variants of humans, certain, I think, breeds of humans is better. We're all one race. Different varieties of humans, as race-specific does. But what it does is it basically is being deployed into areas in Latin America, but now spreading all the way into Texas, and is being sexually transmitted and causes horrific birth defects. But there's a whole host of other pathogens in the vaccines and other areas that also cause the same birth defects and the same syndromes. And I kept asking myself, until about 6 years ago, they always said in the news and in the medical inserts with vaccines and everywhere, if you're pregnant, do not take a vaccine. Because it was known to cause autoimmune disorders in children. It was known to cause miscarriages from 3 months to 8 months. It was known to cause all sorts of serious rejection problems, you name it. And for the same type of disorders that Zika has been documented to cause. And so you look at the numbers that investigative journalist John Rappaport's gone over, we have a lot more of these developments of deformities, the children's heads being much smaller here in the United States and Europe, the microencephaly, than you see actually in places like Brazil and other areas where Zika is spreading to hundreds of thousands. So is this a cover that they're saying the mosquito is causing it, but really it's what's being now introduced to the environment? It's like, take Brazil again. You can look up these articles. Brazil had one of the lowest rates of breast cancer in the world until they adopted glyphosates, Roundup, and other weed killers in the same family in the last 20 years or so. And now their numbers are skyrocketing. Europe had low breast cancer levels till they brought in glyphosates, which we know grow the exact type of tumors that are most common in women's breast. It grows them. In fact, it is hormone-dependent cancers, is the whole family of them. So it's a weed killer, but it's a cancer grower in mammal tissue. That's why you see such an explosion in prostate cancer in men. I mean, this is well-established, well-known, well-developed research and facts. So we're dealing with all of this, and we're trying to suss out exactly what's going on. Because a lot of times, like with HIV, it'll be the cover for what's really killing people, a whole other different group of viruses. And I was told that back in the 1980s by my father, who pulled out medical literature and showed it to me. And then I asked him, I said, Dad, I ought to make him get in here and do an interview sometime. I asked him, how do you know that? And he said, well, I've been told that by high-level people in the Dallas medical community. And then I could extrapolate many years later when my dad told me, oh, well, yeah, you know, at Baylor, where he was a professor of dental sciences, that he would be one of the guys that treated the high-level CIA people and folks, because they would come in with guys in the room when they would sedate them to, you know, do root canals and the rest of it. That's how paranoid the government was back at that time. And my dad still won't tell me about a lot of it because, you know, he wasn't really involved in a bunch of classified stuff, but he was involved and around those whole groups of people. And he told me so much of the stuff he warned me about came directly from those type of folks, like, son, you're 15 to get your hardship license. Do not fill out the organ donor card when they ask you if you want to give your organs. And I said, why, Dad? And he said, I've been told by hospital heads that there are certain doctors and certain groups within the hospitals and certain hospitals that lean towards this, where they don't give you the same treatment if you're in a car wreck or whatever, even though you're viable, because they can get hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that was back then, you know, 27 years ago when I was getting my hardship license. Hundreds of thousands of dollars for your organs. And I actually thought he was full of it, but I didn't completely think that, but I was somewhat naive. I didn't completely believe it. And so years later, I'm watching 60 Minutes in college with my grandfather and grandmother, because they like to watch that every Sunday. And sure enough, they admitted the hospitals in Dallas, the hospitals in Chicago, and places like that, exactly what my father had told me, point blank. But I'm digressing, because we don't need to, you know, go back to anecdotal stories from 27 years ago. Dr. Group's coming in to break this down today. I knew the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation bought out the Rockefeller Foundation for all their weaponized cancer and weaponized sterilant research that's been declassified. I knew that they were heavily involved in developing these genetically engineered mosquitoes to, quote, deliver vaccines and, quote, other forced treatments on the public because they love us so much. I knew that going back to the 20s, the Rockefeller Foundation had already patented weaponized cancer that could be injected. That's mainline history, folks. Just search engine Rockefeller Foundation, cancer viruses, weaponized cancer. But then when you actually read deeper, this is what Group brought in this morning and pointed out. And sure enough, I'd even noticed an article on CNN that we just showed saying, look where Zika came from. First, they were claiming that it came from somewhere in South America. Now they go, oh, Zika's birthplace is Uganda, just like Ebola and everything else, where they have these big globalist and UN research labs where they've been caught testing on people forever. And, of course, you've got Bill Gates releasing mosquitoes inside crowds of people and making jokes and saying, we've got to save the earth and bring one of these numbers down to zero. And the one number, of course, that he brings to zero is humanity. And the TED TV crowd laughs. We're going to bring all those clips back up today and play them in the third hour. It's going to be very, very important. But guess what Dr. Group found from atc.org, and this database of the federal government and private organizations as well. Zika virus, ATCC VR84, the depositor and patenter and owner of it is the Rockefeller Foundation, 1947. Yeah. How do you think this virus gets over from Africa magically, and then it gets souped up like Dr. Boyle, the biologist, the political scientist, the Harvard lawyer, it's quite a pedigree, the author of the Biological Weapons Treaty that was ratified, saying everything points towards it being weaponized Zika. Absolutely, because Zika wasn't wreaking havoc in Africa. Now Zika just magically is showing up and causing all these massive birth defects, so they tell you, you better not have kids until 2018. Now we're going to spray billions of dollars of chemicals all over your jungles and forests. Now we're going to have all these testing labs and screening processes to make sure you don't have Zika. If you get bitten by Zika and you're a woman and you're pregnant, you have a chance of having a problem. If you're a man, you just get a light fever. But the point is, you know it's coming, and sure enough, I search engined it last night. They're rush developing a Zika vaccine. Oh, yeah, I'm sure there'll be some side effects that have, let me just guess, are going to affect fertility like they always do, but that's okay. We get scared of Zika. We better go out and do that, and we already have our new Texas cases of Zika popping up. But here it is, Zika virus, ATCC, registered VR-84 trademark. And the trademark, of course, is held, and the patent is by Rockefeller Foundation. Source, blood from experimental forest sentinel rhesus monkeys, Uganda, 1947. References Dick GW, Trans-R, Sock, Trop, Med, Hygiene 46-509, 1952. And now, right on time, Bill Gates has got his mosquitoes. He starts turning them loose. And he, of course, is heavily tied into the Rockefeller Foundation, and all the fun starts. Stay with us. All right, we're going to get into Zika and other clear biological weapons programs with Dr. Group in the third hour and go over all the clips. Bill Gates admitting he's developing mosquitoes to forcibly inoculate you and so much more. Sarah Palin, you can come out to drudgereport.com and click on the big link there. Has now come out blasting what she calls Senator Ted Cruz's campaign dirty tricks, and Drudge links to her Facebook where she says, thank heavens Donald Trump opened so many eyes to the lies, corruption, and total lack of accountability that comes so naturally to the preeminent political class. And Senator Ted Cruz was spot on when he once noted that millions of Americans are asking for accountability and truth, which is why it's so curious and so saddened us, the lack of accountability with the lies of Cruz's own campaign. Yeah, we should take her Facebook and actually format it nicely and post it to Infowars.com and then actually link some of the Ted Cruz campaign tweets in the hours before the caucuses even closed, announcing that Carson had left, and then it, quote, appears he's quit. You see them covering their butts. So be sure and vote for Ted Cruz. And undoubtedly, that scam did cheat Trump out of the big win. Look, I don't want to sit here and bash Ted Cruz. I don't want to bash Rand Paul, who's now dropped out. But Donald Trump is who the system's afraid of. Donald Trump is 15 to 20 points or more ahead in every other state right now. Watching Fox and CNN and MSNBC, all they do is say, the luster is off. The aura of invincibility is gone. Trump is collapsing. Trump is discredited. Trump is over. Trump has lost his shine. Rubio is surging. Rubio. And the establishment money from Bill Gates and everybody else is going to Rubio. I don't think Ted Cruz is an establishment guy. He's much better than Rubio. I would take a Cruz presidency big time. But I do not like the nasty behavior, which we noted that night and yesterday, that he clearly had his people manipulating, claiming that Carson had dropped out. And Carson was a close fourth, one of the key people to shoot down. That is a very deceptive, dirty trick. And if I would have seen that out of Trump, I'd say, that's pretty gangsterish, Trump. That's one big strike against you. If I see much more of that, I'm going to have a big problem. And I'm saying the same thing to Ted Cruz. Your wife being Goldman Sachs and CFR is a strike. But that's okay. She's done a lot of good stuff in the Senate for the Second Amendment against Obamacare and much more. And you've got a good history. But now you just did this situation with a dirty trick. If we see a lot more of this, I don't know if it counts as a full strike, but it's bad. And this is what Donald Trump had to say about it. Trump came out and said they'll sue his bleeping you-know-what off. Donald Trump blasts Ted Cruz over eligibility, dirty tricks. And undoubtedly it was a dirty trick, and we've seen a lot of that. And now we see the whole media against Donald Trump. That tells you what you need to know.
I have been opposed to Obamacare from the day they conceived it. And Ted Cruz comes out with an ad that I'm in favor of Obamacare. Can you believe this? Just like he did with Carson, where Carson, he said, left Iowa. He's out of the race. Vote for him. Did you hear about this one? He said he left Iowa. Carson's a nice guy, Ben. So Ben is all of a sudden getting calls that he quit the race. These guys said he quit the race, he's gone, he's out. Send your votes to him. What kind of people are we dealing with these politicians? And made up, liar, honestly, and made up stories. Made up stories. Everybody in here, many of you know me. From day one, I've been talking about we're going to repeal and replace Obamacare. From day one. Now, remember, I'm going to do it. We're going to do it. If you remember, so important, from day one I've been saying repeal and replace Obamacare. I've been talking about the $5 billion website that never worked for years, right? All of a sudden I see an ad or something, Donald Trump is in favor of Obamacare. And people are calling, oh, I thought you were against it. That's too bad. These are dishonest people, these politicians.
All right, let's stop right there.
These are worse than real estate people in.
We're going to come back and play the part where he says sue his butt off straight ahead and more. Huge economy developments, big military developments. Huge brain chip developments for the troops. They're just announcing, oh, we want to put brain chips in the troops. It's no big deal.
From day one, I've been saying repeal and replace Obamacare. I've been talking about the $5 billion website that never worked for years, right? All of a sudden, I see an ad or something, Donald Trump is in favor of Obamacare. And people are calling, oh, I thought you were against it. That's too bad. These are dishonest people, these politicians. These are worse than real estate people in New York, I'm telling you. No, these are truly dishonest people. Then he said, Ben Carson has quit the race. The day of the election. Ben Carson, during a caucus, Ben Carson has quit the race. And Ben didn't quit the race. In other words, Ben Carson quit and let me have your votes. What kind of crap is this? And then he makes up a thing that says, like it's on a government document, voter violation. It says on top, just like it comes right out of government, municipal, voter violation. And it talks about, it gives grades, F, 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 you haven't voted. But it says you can go vote, but you got to go vote for him. And people are afraid. They think, oh, I'm in violation. I have to go vote. What kind of people are these people? And then the Attorney General in Iowa is investigating, but by that time, they're all gone. The election's over. What kind of people do we have running for office? No, it's honestly, really, really dishonest. And I think I know why. You know why? Because he was born in Canada. Was. Happens to be a problem, folks. That happens to be. You watch. The Democrats, they've already said they're going to sue him. He gets the nomination, they're going to sue his ass off. Actually, they're going to sue the country, but they're going to sue him. And that's a big problem.
So there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, bottom line, Donald Trump is telling the truth there when he says that he was not for Obamacare and said it was terrible. He said the Iraq war was a horrible idea back in 2003 when no one else but people like this show were saying that. And they try to come out and act like he was for the war. They are spinning everything that he stood for. He did make sickening comments like, I like Hillary Clinton. I just like her because that's because he was trying to work in New York State where she was a senator. So he admits he played politics. What matters here is what I've said hundreds of times. The entire power structure, Bilderberg, Davos, the elites, both political parties, every TV channel I tune to says, Marco Rubio, turbocharging, leading, surging, going to win when he's like 5, 6, 7 points in New Hampshire. And Trump's almost 40. And he's 15 to 20 points ahead of Cruz. But they don't care. They're now saying, he's over. His shine is gone. His aura of invincibility is gone. Trying to create that perception. So you can say what you want about Donald Trump. I'm going to say this very slowly to folks out there that are confused by it. The power structure that we don't like that's been screwing us over, the special interests that are globalist, that want to make us poor to politically control us, that want crony, centralized capitalism on top and socialism and communism on bottom, to domesticate us, to make us dependent. They don't like Donald Trump. Now, it's a no-brainer, then, that we should like Donald Trump. If he betrays us, he becomes our enemy, just like they are. But at this time, we know Hillary Clinton's bad. We know Bernie Sanders is bad. We know Jeb Bush is bad. And Ted Cruz, getting money from Goldman Sachs, the top of the pyramid, his wife being CFR, working for him high level. To me, that's a black eye, but I can see people turn a corner and truly be anti-establishment. But the hanging out with Henry Kissinger, the hanging out with George Bush Sr. saying he's his mentor, it starts to stink to high heaven. And then they come in and have not one, not two, but three of the top surrogates, including the congressman from Iowa, tweet that, oh, Carson has left, Carson has given up, you better vote for us, when nothing happened of the kind. Is a dirty, 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 dirty trick. And it really makes me suspicious. You didn't see Trump's people coming out saying Carson had quit. You didn't see other people doing that. And now Ben Carson is saying Cruz's apology needs accountability. During an appearance on Fox Business Networks after the Bell Republican presidential candidate, Ben Carson responded to an apology from Ted Cruz after his campaign allegedly, well, no, they did it, spread false rumors that he had dropped out of the race. As Christians, of course, we accept people's apologies, Carson said. We also have to ask ourselves, is this acceptable to us, the American people, or should there be some accountability? Carson added there should be some consequences for things. You don't just say, oh, okay, sorry, let's move on. The damage was done to me. It wasn't done to them. That's right. Undoubtedly, this is hours before it closes. The word spreads. They put out all these tweets. He's quit. He's left. It's over. His people believe it. And who's reaching out to him to tell him? It's the Cruz people. Hey, vote for us, to push them above Trump. And the sad thing here is for Cruz is he may not have even needed to do this to get above Trump, because the establishment doesn't want Ted Cruz either. He may get some of his money from him. He may have worked with him. They don't trust him. His voting record's too good. His affiliations are too good. The direction he's been taking for 10 years with what he stood for in Texas politics and now in the Senate is too good for them to ever truly trust him. But boy, they know they can deal with him before they can deal with Trump. And that was a mistake Trump made 2 weeks ago, going, look, everybody hates Cruz. He's hard to deal with. I can deal with folks in Congress. That's not what people want to hear. Breaking news. The press is reporting that Ben Carson is taking time off from the campaign after a loss in Iowa and making a big announcement next week. Please inform any Carson caucus goers of this news and urge them to vote Ted Cruz. Yeah, that's just one of his people. It was much clearer in many of the tweets put out officially by the congressman who was running his campaign in Iowa and others that, well, he's left, he's quitting. Word is he's quit, better vote for Ted Cruz. I'm not going to beat a dead horse anymore. Everybody knows about Hillary winning 6 coin tosses in a row to get the one up for grabs delegate in the 6 precincts that tied. And so that's clearly a fraud. Everybody knows about the Microsoft computers going belly up right in the precincts where that happened. Everybody knows about he has crowds of 50,000, she has crowds of 500, but magically he lost. I mean, does anyone buy that? When an election's being stolen, they will keep the two neck and neck until they decide exactly how to cheat, because they don't want to cheat too big, because then investigations get started and there's too many areas where the cheating happened, so you're going to get caught here or there. A witness might go public, as they have before in many states. And so when they cheat to the bare minimum so that it looks plausible. You look at the modus operandi of stolen elections, and it's all over Iowa with Hillary Clinton. And it's all over Iowa with Ted Cruz. And we have Ted Cruz red-handed, putting out not one, not two, not three, but 4 tweets from their official campaign and their surrogates saying, Carson, the word is out, better vote for Cruz. Unprecedented. Ted Cruz comes out and says, oh, I'm sorry, there was some confusion, wasn't meant, you know, sorry about that. Sorry about that? Look, his campaign managers and the head of his campaign in Iowa, they all knew exactly what they were doing. So don't talk to us like we're stupid, Cruz. All right, let's move on from there. Because forget Ted Cruz, okay? He's not going to do as well in these other states. It's Rubio. Marco Rubio has the full backing of the system behind him now, and that's where you're going to see the fraud, and that's where we saw it in Iowa when it came to the elections. The polls had him 10 to 15 points basically down, depending on which poll, most of them about 6, 7, 8 points, and then he got double what he was showing in polls on average when it came time for election night, but all the other polls were pretty accurate. While the system keeps saying for 2 weeks before, the surge of Rubio, the surge of Rubio, the surge of Rubio, the surge of Rubio, on and on and on, until I almost caught myself saying the surge of Rubio like I was in an ashram or something, you know, doing Vedic chants. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I mean, it was going on, and it still is. Surge of Rubio, surge of Rubio, surge of Rubio. Rubio looking good, Rubio doing great. I mean, don't people see the system propping him up? You know what? I think they do. They just say that so you feel like you're alone when they steal the elections and give it to Marco Rubio, Bill Clinton 2.0. Because if we don't buy the gimmick of a woman in the White House, if folks reject that and she gets indicted, and we don't buy the gimmick of, you know, President Obama, his whole legacy, well, how about the gimmick of the first Hispanic president? I would vote for a Latino or Cuban or Hispanic president in 1 second if they had a good record, if they were constitutionalist. I will vote for Ted Cruz, despite his clear dirty tricks over a Hillary Clinton or Bernie, because let me tell you, the dirty tricks of cheating somebody in an election is bad enough, but it's nothing compared. And there's some plausible deniability that just his surrogates did it. It's a lot better than Hillary with her long line of murders and corruption and Benghazi and everything else that makes your head spin. But I think if Ted Cruz really wants to get ahead of this, he needs to have the people that did it come out and apologize themselves and distance themselves from the campaign. But I wouldn't hold your breath for that. Because somebody like Ted Cruz is a little smart for his own britches. Smart enough to cheat, not smart enough not to cheat. It was a stupid move. It's very, very transparent. It's disgusting. Now, we're going to get into this economic news. It's obviously very, very important. And, folks, I forgot to cover this yesterday. I mentioned it. Can I have the article on the Financial Times of London? Big banks meet in secret, have secret conferences. See, used to they'd hide those secret conferences. Now they go, oh, these are secret conferences for your own good. I mentioned it, but I never covered it because it ties into all this. I also want to get into this huge news that I mentioned earlier from military.com. Could the U.S. deploy cyborg troops? Now, remember, if they've got chimera clones 30 years ago, they started mirroring the chimera clones today. Part human, part animal, you name it. They've been putting brain chips in troops that we know of from MIT literature for at least 20 years. And again, I'm not against a brain chip if you've got epilepsy. I'm not against a brain chip if you've got serious problems. I'm all for scientific development. The problem is what back doors are going to be in there if something is ubiquitously applied to whole classes of citizens or jobs. And they're saying in the near future, you will need a brain chip and a quick, easy surgery. Don't worry. It's all being sold as fun PR to be able to do your job in the military. So it's the mainlining of it. Oh, we've got depressed troops. DARPA started 6 years ago implanting brain chips in them to make them happy. You won't be upset anymore once you have your brain chip. The incredible creepiness, we're going to cover that after the break that is coming up. But first, I am very, very excited to introduce Anthroplex Dietary Foundation for Men Dietary Supplement 60 caplets. This came about, well, I'll just be completely honest with you. It's not bad to be honest. It's just, it's probably not the clearest pitch in the world for a product, but all I can do is tell the truth. I said, listen, I know that it costs a lot to have the wet herbs, recently sourced, totally organic, passing California standards, which almost no one else is even able to do. We have the test up at InfoWarsLife.com. This is a new product we're rolling out. Anthroplex. This is a year in the making to finally get this done. I said, this isn't too expensive for super male or female vitality. Comparable brands are about 30 to 40% more. And they're not even cold herbs. They're not even cold-pressed wet herbs. This is an oil, folks. It's so thick and so concentrated. I said, I want something that is less expensive. And we can put it up on screen so folks can see the price of it. $29.95, discounted out of the gates, normally $39.95. This is a Bentley or Rolls-Royce quality men or female enhancement for stamina, overall mood, libido, muscles, you name it. I've been taking it for 6 months before it was mass produced. And I will tell you that I don't take it every day with Super Male because it's so strong. But here's what it comes down to. I said, I want to have something that is less expensive, but from organic dry herbs. And Dr. Group said, well, fine, I'll develop it for you, but already we have 4.8 star ratings on bodybuilding sites, you name it. You know, why would we improve on something? This is everything you need. And I said, really, are you sure? He said, yeah. And I said, okay, I guess I won't have another product that's less, but does pretty much the same thing. But then he came back and he said, well, actually, this is like a year and a half ago. He goes, there are some foundational things that are really good that if people don't have those, then this other formula won't work as well. So together they work even better, but you can't really mix these herbs together in the same oil-based tincture because they are dry herbs. He goes, so this is just as good or better in ways, but the two work in synergy together. And so that's what Anthroplex does. So this is the new launch, the new rollout, introducing Anthroplex, the twice-daily pill formulated for men and women that is perfect pair to super male or super female vitality. Anthroplex synergistically works with super male vitality by using key ingredients that you have been asking for, like horny goat weed, that's just the name of it, folks, and there's a reason it has that name, zinc orotate, and newly balanced blend of other organic herbs. Yeah, it's that complex that's key. Anthroplex was created to help restore your masculine foundation and stimulate vitality with its own blend of unique ingredients. For a limited time, when you buy the synergistic duo of Anthroplex and Super Male Vitality together at InfoWarsLife.com, you will get 15% off and free shipping when you get the combo together. And they're both great by themselves, but together, stacking the two together, amazing. Start fighting back and rebuilding your foundation today with all the estrogen mimickers, all the chemicals. I mean, men had much higher testosterone levels 100 years ago. They know. I mean, they've got the studies. You're talking like 800, 1,000. The average man's like 300 now. Like an 80-year-old man's supposed to have that much testosterone. Visit InfoWarsLife.com and secure your bottle of Anthroplex before we sell this limited first run. That's InfoWarsLife.com. And it's free shipping on all orders of $50 or more on all the products at InfoWarsLife.com or InfoWarsStore.com. But this is a particular special of 15% off and free shipping on Anthroplex with Super Male Vitality, or buy it by itself to test it out. All right, I'm going to jump right into this brain chip news, and then we've got Rand Paul announcing he's dropping out of the race so he can battle for his Kentucky seat and more. But briefly, going back to Anthroplex, this is a premium formula that blows away most of the competition out there for a much, much, much lower price. And I'm really, really proud of it because everything we try to bring you is something that is new and original, but also based on deep research, fused with ancient knowledge. So we basically soup up a lot of older formulas, but also adding the latest formulas in with it. That's why there's such rave reviews. Anthroplex, folks, you know, I went to a doctor about a year ago to have my blood tested. I was 41, and to basically have a physical done. And then just at the end of it, he said, hey, you want some Cialis or something? You know, you're a married guy, whatever. And I said, you know, I really don't have any issues with functionality or anything. It's a family show, but let's grow up and get serious about our bodies and our life. And he said, oh, you know, you might have some fun on the weekend. I'm going to give you a prescription to Cialis. And I didn't really notice very much. Maybe it's because I don't have issues. But Super Male Vitality, the first time I took it 4 years ago, 6 months before it was released, it was like, what on earth is happening? Am I 20 years old again? And then I take an Anthroplex, and it's so strong, folks, that I'm scared to take 2 tablets, and that's what most people take. Now, it varies per person, but let me just give you a newsflash. This is not something to play around with. I was talking to Tim Frugier, who buys pills at the gas station that, you know, are like $25, basically the price of this, that have less milligrams of one ingredient that's in each pill of this. People pay $25, $10, whatever, at the gas station, you know, for the 2 pills. And boy, do they work. This has more than the gas station pills. In fact, I intend to do an ad where I walk into the gas station, you know, into some, you know, gas station and pick up the people's pills and show what it cost and the milligrams and then what this has got. It's crazy. They'd sell that for $10, $12, sometimes $25. But see, people think it must be really good if it's $25 for 2 pills. In fact, that's even a marketing tactic some people have. I just don't do that. I was told by a nutraceutical company that they sell something similar to DNA Force for $500 a bottle, or about 5-6 times what we do. And they sell more because it just has a huge price tag. I don't get the psychology. This is 60 pills for $29.95. And again, we're not selling it as a sex aid. We're not saying it's going to do that. Just try it out for yourself. What it is for overall stamina and health and wanting to exercise and be healthy. That's why we came out with Super Male Vitality. And it does great for that with people's experience, but everybody else just goes, no, it's the mood, it's the attitude. It's not just libido, folks. It's the way it makes you feel. These are such incredible products. And out of the gates, 15% off. And your purchase makes it all possible. InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com, or 888-253-3139. Okay, I'm done. I usually only plug once an hour, but it's a new product. I kind of went off the deep end there, but it's so exciting. When we come back, Rand Paul is obviously dropped out, and it's very, very sad he did that because I wanted him to still be in the debates to inject great ideas. But he's so credible. He's so real. He's so unfake, so uncalculating from what I've known that he could stop spending money. He could stop spending time and energy and just go to the debates, but he knows he'd probably be thrown out of those soon because he'd drop in the polls. So maybe he's doing the right thing, but he is suspending his campaign. I would have loved to kept him in the debates. Others could fall off. Scandals could come out. I wish he wasn't dropping out, but here's the problem. The system hates him so much. They've got big Republican and big Democrat money in Kentucky for the last few years, organizing to take him out and dirty tricks and you name it. And so he has to go defend his Kentucky Senate seat, and he's probably right to do that. I just wish he'd have been more hardcore early on in the last year to stay in the front runner seat. But he gave a powerful speech breaking down why he's leaving. We'll get to that, and then we'll get to the brain chips, which they're announcing for U.S. military. I got in the studio a little bit late because Austin Police Chief and his 8-foot-tall assistant are in the control room here. Let's cut to Art Aceveda, Austin Police Chief for TV viewers, standing by George Washington. There you go. We can cut to that shot and show him standing by George Washington over there. And I didn't know he's been trying to call me lately. He must have my old cell phone number or something. I had to discard my other cell phone because they gave it out all over the internet. But he's going to be joining us. We're going to punch it up and show him in the control room in a moment if we're able to do that. But we're going to be discussing with him the whole waterfront of things happening in the world, the election, the Second Amendment, where he thinks the future of policing is going. Is it going to be all militarized, or will it truly be community policing? Black Lives Matter. It is all coming up. You guys can't give me a shot in there? Oh, he got a phone call. I wonder why he ran off. He's usually right on time when he gets here, and then I saw him kind of run out of there, so I thought he was running to another camera or something. Well, let's cut to Nico in there. Nico, how are you doing there in the control room?
Is the mic open? I'm doing well. How are you?
You know, I'll tell you my problem. I don't go to the crew enough to where they're even, you know, kind of used to it. So that's why we're more and more going to start talking to the crew on a routine basis. But getting serious, we're going to go to break here in a moment. But first, this is Rand Paul saying that he is leaving the campaign to go back and defend his Kentucky seat. So here is the senator.
It's been an honor to participate in the 2016 Republican presidential primary. I'm proud of our principled campaign and the thousands of young people that have been energized by our message of limited constitutional government. Ours has been a unique voice in this race, one that says big government threatens Americans from all walks of life, rich and poor, black and white, from the coal miner who lost his job over President Obama's destructive EPA regulations to the teenager from a poor family facing jail time for marijuana. I will continue to fight for criminal justice reform, for privacy, and your Fourth Amendment rights. I will continue to champion due process over indefinite detention. I will continue to be a voice against the out-of-control regulation, spending, and debt that is crippling our country's economy and the future of our children. I will not ignore the terrible cost of decades of war and chaos in the Middle East and the unintended consequences of regime change and nation building. I will never forget the thousands of American soldiers who have given their lives and the thousands more who live every day with catastrophic injuries. These are the issues that have defined my campaign. Kelly and I are deeply grateful to our outstanding staff and tireless volunteers and supporters, people who believe in liberty. It has been a privilege to give voice to the liberty movement in this race, and I believe we have broadened the debate by being part of it. Although today I will suspend my campaign for the presidency, I will continue to fight on for liberty, for the Constitution, for justice in the United States Senate. Thank you, and God bless America.
And we are back live, ladies and gentlemen. There is Senator Rand Paul saying bye-bye and that he's not going to be running for president anymore. I personally think it overall is a mistake. He should stay in the campaign a while just for the political attention and then talk about what's happening in Kentucky because that's where they're trying to unseat him there, both political parties, which is a real endorsement of Senator Rand Paul that both political parties are against him. Both political parties are also against Ted Cruz to a great extent, but who they're really against is Donald Trump. And when you see the power structure against somebody, you can better believe that means that overall they're good, because we know the path we've been going down for a long time is a bad one. Why not change to something else? And we know Hillary and Jeb Bush are not that change, obviously. But there you go. He's going back to fight for his seat. Now, right here, Arte Saveda, we have the Austin Police Chief in here, in studio with us. We're going to be discussing the waterfront with him straight ahead. I'm Alex Jones with Infowars.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have the Austin Police Chief, Arte Saveda, a very interesting fellow here in studio with us for the balance of the hour. We're just in here turning up his audio. And the reason I like having him in studio is he'll come in studio. Other Austin police chiefs that I ran into weren't really bad people, but they were very cloistered, let's say, kind of up in their high tower, and were really kind of afraid of the media. Art, you have not been afraid of the media, and you have a very, very interesting past. Of course, you're a Cuban immigrant to this country fleeing Fidel Castro, and so that's why you've always pointed out to me that, you know, you love liberty and freedom. So it's good to have you here with us, but you're also a popular police chief across the country. And I've got to say, as Austin's grown, normally they say police departments get worse as they get bigger because it's hard to control them. But I've really got to say it's true, and I think the press says it, the public say it, that Austin is a model police department.
Well, thank you. That means a lot to me, especially coming from a person that has been a watchdog of government for his entire adult life. We're definitely not perfect. We know we have our issues, we have our challenges, but by and large, I wouldn't trade these officers for any in the country. They're phenomenal. Well,
you got in some trouble, I mean, not a lot of trouble a few years ago, and you said, listen, at least our police aren't shooting people in the back every day. You know, talking about other departments. And again, other departments, I'm not even attacking them, but compared to a lot of these other departments, Austin also has really nice police on average, but they also, tend to do their jobs at the same time compared to other cities I've been in.
Yeah, I mean, and it's important. You know, the city of Austin is it's a progressive city. It's a successful city. It's a community that's very much engaged, as you know, and this entire region. And Texans, I think, to take their liberty very seriously, as should all Americans. And so, you know, we're held to a pretty high standard as an organization, and our officers take a lot of pride working in a department where they know that that we're not going to set the bar high and talk about it. We're going to enforce that standard. And so, yeah, it's been 8.5 years that I've been here now, and I still remember the first time I came here and met you, and you know, remember you all reached out and like they didn't think I should come. Why wouldn't I come and talk to you? I think that transparency is important. I think engagement's important, and we don't have to agree on everything, but at least we should know where you're a police chief, and whether you agree with me or not, at least you'll know where I stand on issues.
Well, when I say cover the waterfront, I want to go wherever you want to go, and I also have some tough questions about policing, but also I want to just look at numbers. And I've got a whole stack of articles here. The listeners see these stories and hear these stories, every few weeks, but I'm going to actually bibliograph these and go over the headlines in a moment. But we've got about 12,400 gun deaths a year out of 340-something million people. Mm-hmm. Death by guns is very, very rare compared to many other forms of death, like drowning or being hit by a car. 7,000 plus of those, and I have the numbers. We can put up the Justice Department numbers on screen showing crimes gone down using guns 50+% since 1992, Justice Department's own numbers. You got 7,000 plus kill themselves with guns. So then you've got less than 5,000 other deaths, and most of those are criminals getting shot. And then you've got a couple thousand that are questionable, and maybe 1,000 of those are cops shooting people, and maybe 150 of those are the police in the wrong on the high end. So it's a hoax that there's this epidemic of gun crime, but it's also a hoax, the numbers don't lie, that police are killing people in cold blood. Now, but people can't have it both ways. You can't then be pro-gun and say, see, gun crime's way down, but oh my gosh, you know, the police are demons. But you also can't say the police are demons, but guns are saving everybody. So where do you stand on those numbers?
Well, first of all, the numbers that I'm familiar with that I've seen is over 30,000 Americans die from gunshots every year. That includes accidental, that includes suicides, and that includes intentional gunfire. And so, you know, I mean, that's a lot of people that are dying. And the other day I saw an article where the accidental deaths of children that gunfire from kids getting their hands on guns is going up. And I think that, to me, you know, some people think that because I don't believe that just anybody should have a gun, that only law-abiding Americans with sound mind should have firearms, that I'm anti-Second Amendment. But I do believe in the Second Amendment, but I believe that with rights come responsibilities. And when children get their hands on gun because parents aren't keeping them secure and they end up accidentally shooting themselves or a playmate, you know, the gun isn't the issue. It's irresponsible adults. And so that's what I focus on. My efforts is,
well, it varies a lot because I was going with numbers before the suicide rate exploded. They just put it on screen. Of the 20-something thousand gun deaths a year, depending on which number you look at, that's the Pew Research Center, 19,000 plus are suicides.
Yeah.
So my point is, the vast majority is suicide. That's their choice to take their own life. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but out of 300 plus million people, guns are still one of the more rare forms of death.
Well, I mean, we also have data that showed that last year we had about 378 what was called multiple victim shootings, where you have 4 or more people.
But weren't most of those gang related? I mean, that's not good. But
yeah, I mean, a lot of them are, you know, criminals. And so again, I think that the way that we protect gun rights, the way we protect the Second Amendment, is that we as a society should do everything we can to keep those guns in the right hands. And that's in the hands of law-abiding Americans of sound mind.
Well, here's what I was getting at, though. I'm not even defending police in general. I'm defending the facts.
Yeah.
You might have 150 people, depending on how you look at the numbers, say 200, say 100. You know, these numbers all vary every year, that are killed by police where the officer was in the wrong.
Yeah. Now,
then the media makes the fact that police are killing everybody and there's an epidemic this giant #1 story day in, day out, week in, week out. And I started to ask, why is this when one of the rarest ways to die is a cop shooting you? Okay, so you know, the police shoot maybe 1,500 people a year, and then maybe 150 or so are in the wrong. That's a high number from our research. So all I'm saying is, just like guns are being scapegoated, police are being scapegoated. Now you seem to know the numbers, the latest ones, because new numbers just came out. We checked what you said. We pulled them up. It was accurate. What numbers do you have on police shootings every year?
Well, here's part of the challenge. First, there's a false narrative that is being, I think, promoted by some folks in the media that there are about 800,000 police officers representing 18,000 police departments. And there's this narrative that police officers, you would think, that are every day just going around whacking people with firearms, and it's simply not true. We have 800,000 cops representing about 18,000 police departments, and the fact still remains that the very, very vast majority of police officers will serve anywhere from 25 to 30 years. They'll never shoot at or shoot anybody, and they'll never seriously injure anybody. That's an absolute truth today. But here's the problem, Alex. We're not gathering data. You know, what's really frustrating is that the government has data on everything, and somehow we're not requiring police departments to report their use of force. I'm very proud of the fact that if you go to the Austin Police Department's website, you will see our use of force, you will see our shootings, you will see everything on there, because at the end of the day, data belongs to the community.
Sure, what I'm getting at is, I don't like all the asset forfeiture seizure. The whole drug war is a fraud because big banks and parts of our federal government have been caught shipping the drugs in. We can debate that if you want. I'm against the whole drug war. I'm against some of the things police are directed to do. But at the same time, to sit there with these incidences on TV to hype up the public, to create this culture of war with the police, has an in-game reason. And people like George Soros are funding it to make political rebellion in America be against the grassroots instead of getting the federal government back under control. Now, I know you're not an enemy of the federal government. I'm not either. But clearly there's a move, and I know you're more of a Democrat in this city, but there is a Democrat move to make...
you call me a Democrat?
Well, no, I'm just saying it's a Democrat city.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So you have to get along with them. Okay, well, are you a Democrat or Republican as a private citizen?
We don't, you know, I'm a center-right person. But I think that I think life's about balance, and I think that for me, the problem with our government sometimes is that people are in these extreme silos on both sides of the aisle, and people don't want to work with each other. And it's in our nature as human beings to want to work with each other.
No, I understand that, but I mean, let's get to it then. What I'm saying is, do you agree with me that there's a clear agenda the last 7 years to scapegoat the police and local government and create a lot of tension that then the big foundations and Al Sharpton and the White House admittedly are running with George Soros $35 million alone in Ferguson alone to hype that up into what that... they want to change the subject onto that.
Well, I don't know if I don't know, because I'm not familiar with that funding, what you're talking about, but I do know that the media keeps trying to paint a picture of American law enforcement police officers being these out-of-control goons, when, in fact, police officers are better trained, better equipped, more professional, better educated today than they've ever been. Having said that, there's still some bad policing going on, and you cannot deny
Sure, of course there is.
that there's some bad policing.
So I'm asking you the question, then, if you agree that there's this demonization going on, what do you think the end game is? It's not just media for ratings, because I've, you know, cut my teeth criticizing the police and going over all that. And I still do when it's needed, until I realize it's a scapegoat from keeping people from being politically involved and changing the system. Instead, let's just have riots in every city. Then the feds come in and federalize the police, which is what Al Sharpton said the White House plan is with this whole UN-run Strong Cities initiative.
Well, I can tell you that local control is a long-standing, I think, long-standing practice in this country, and folks like to have control over their own communities, and so it would be against the history of this country, the history of this nation, where communities want to be able to establish their own priorities, you know, what's important to them, and so I don't see, regardless of whether somebody has an agenda or not, I don't see it happening in our lifetime.
Okay, well, let me ask you this question then. Why do you think there would be an agenda on the left to make their #1 political issue be about the police? We're going to skip this network break.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's their agenda or not. I can tell you that one of the things that I'm working with, which is called the Public Data Initiative, with the White House that I'm part of that initiative is trying to provide as much data to the public as we can in terms of use of force, racial profiling, all of those things. And in my conversations with the White House as to why they want to do that, it's because they believe that you can't show where the police department's doing a good job if people don't know the data on what's going on. And so, I mean, that initiative goes against goes a little bit against what you believe their end game is, because I really believe, and I think you would agree with this, that the vast majority of police officers in this country are honorable professionals. And I think that the more data that we provide to the communities we serve, that will be the number one proof in the evidence is the data. And I think that the American people will make that same conclusion.
We have a little data package that is Justice Department numbers. If you guys can find that and just kind of run it for TV viewers, I'll describe it for radio listeners. But it does show the Justice Department's numbers, the FBI numbers from 92 until 2012. That's when the latest numbers came in, of a 50+% drop in crime using guns from 30-something thousand pre-1992 a year to 12,000 to 15,000. You were showing me some numbers where suicide's up, and I'd forgotten that as the economy goes down, you're going to see more suicide. But just massive reductions in overall gun crime. We can also show the LA Times, gun crime way down, public thinks it's up. Kind of like when a new Jaws movie would come out, the public would think that, you know, great white sharks were eating everybody, but they eat about 5 people a year.
I know that when that movie came out as a kid, I made sure there's always somebody deeper than me out in the ocean.
See, there you go.
Just in case, you got to have that little...
See, look, Chief, right there. Gun crime has plunged, but Americans think it's up, study says.
Yeah, but that's 2 years ago. That's the May 7th, 2013. And actually, there's a little discussion right now on the national level amongst local police chiefs about there has been some spikes recently. And
well, I agree, because the economy's falling apart.
Well, so the question is, some are saying the economy may not be doing as well. Others are saying that police officers are depolicing, which is a phenomenon of police officers.
The opposite of profiling. They're just saying, yeah, I'm profiling, I'm not going to that neighborhood.
Well,
tell us about that.
Well, I mean, some police chiefs are, and some, there's a debate as to whether or not police officers, because of the constant barrage of criticism and around the nation, that some are asking, is there depolicing going on, which is the phenomena where officers become risk averse and don't want to aggressively go out and keep people safe. And so that's kind of the debate's going on right now. LA, if you go look at the LA Times now, their crime's been going up. And luckily here in Austin, I'm happy and proud to say that we're doing okay.
Sure. Well, as you know, statistics come out every few years, not every year. We're waiting for new numbers to come out. And I agree with you, just looking at the news, robberies, things like that have gone up some. Still, they're way down from the 90s and 80s.
Yeah, so from historic,
but they're starting to come up a little bit.
But they're starting to come up. Yeah. So if you look at the long term data, it's still down, but it is coming up from what it's been in recent years. And so you never want to see violent crime going up. And so the question is it the economy? Is it depolicing? And that's what social scientists are debating right now.
Undoubtedly, since the 90s, there's been massive proliferation of gun ownership and concealed carry, and I really don't think overall it can be argued, disagree with me if you think, because you're an expert, that overall concealed carry and lawful citizens starting to carry guns has frustrated criminals that would be the type that would carjack and mug people.
Well, I can tell you that, our concealed hide license licensees here are by and large very just really responsible gun owners. They take it very seriously, but it's never enough. And so I really worry about, now we have open carry and now they want constitutional carry. And, I'm not in favor of constitutional carry, and that makes me a communist to a lot of people. I believe that if you are a convicted felon, you should be prohibited from owning a firearm. But I also believe that at some point, depends on the nature of the felony, that you should be able to restore your rights. I don't think it should.
Sure, because what if it's a white collar, bounce a check, and you can't own a gun?
Right. So.
Well, listen, if it was enforced properly, I'm not against felons too, but the problem is they're always wanting to expand it.
Well, it's that slippery slope, but I don't think we should use the fear of the slippery slope to block, attempts to keep firearms in the hands of the, again, law-abiding Americans of sound mind.
Well, I'll tell you why the establishment left is against the police in general. They want to demonize it so they can take it over, so they can regulate it. And it's a good cop, bad cop, where one side of the White House is attacking the police, then the other side comes in and says, do this and we'll take care of you. So they have the surrogates attack, and then the guys on top come in playing good cop and say, we're going to help you do A, B, and C, and then we'll make sure you're left alone. But the reason they hate police, fundamentally, if you go back to the 60s and the whole leftist communist ideology, is even though they're not communist probably today, unless you're Bernie Sanders, they still have this mindset of bomb the police, shoot the police, the pigs are the problem. When we take over the government, we're going to deal with it. And so there's an ingrained animosity in the left, and that's what they're doing. That's what they're pushing. I have personally seen it in Austin with the communist brigades and the rest of them coming out and attacking us. And there's this idea that when the left attacks people, they're just allowed to do it. And I've never been somebody who was left or right. I'm a libertarian. But I got to tell you, under the left in this country, they are trying to take over the nation, and they know that the average police officer, even if they're socially liberal, gets that guns protect us overall 9 times out of 10, gets basic common sense, lives in the real world, isn't domesticated, and the nanny state is fundamentally against police. And when the left is done taking the American citizens' guns, they're then going to try to disarm the police. And that's actually in these UN treaties. And we have Austin Police Chief Art Aceveda here breaking all this down with us today. Do you disagree or agree with all that?
Again, you know, we work very closely with the Obama administration on several initiatives that I really think that the intent of those initiatives is to provide a lot of information and transparency to the communities that we serve. And to me, that transparency and that information that they're encouraging police departments around the country to provide is going to build trust. So it's going to have the opposite effect of your theory there. But, you know, that's for you to, that's your position. I can just tell you, based on my conversations, I've actually had the privilege of meeting with the president and talking about some of these issues involving law enforcement. And I sure hope that you're wrong, because that's my take, is that his intentions are good, that he's trying to build trust by providing data and transparency.
Well, look, I'm not just here trying to get you to say some zinger attacking the president. The president's about to be out of office.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly, though, when this whole Black Lives Matter thing gets cranked up, and then 3 cops in a week get shot in the back of the head, or up in Philadelphia, a jihadi comes up and shoots somebody, or San Bernardino, we see a jihad attack, and it came out the FBI was ordered by the White House to not say it was a jihadi. Now, come on, Police Chief Art Aceveda. Clearly, there's an attempt to cover up police murders generally and not point out they're political, and that there's an agenda to shoot cops while they're pumping gas, and there's an agenda to cover up jihad attacks from this administration.
Well, I think that the issue is you don't want to paint something with a broad brush until you have the information. I think that the FBI initially, we had conversations actually with the director of the FBI initially. We don't want to demonize the Muslim community. I think that's one of the issues I have as a police chief, is that people become radicalized, whether it's by gang members, by, you know, a right-wing extreme group that want, you know, like this guy that went shooting up my city from the Phineas priesthood. That
no, you're right, yeah.
You know,
so you're saying not including them makes them get radicalized, and so that's why we should reach out, just like you've reached out to my show 8 years ago.
Oh,
go out and pat the radicals on the head, and they'll be nice.
You know, listen, everybody, the more we can do as human beings and make people feel welcome and belong, it's important. I think that with the San Bernardino incident, initially, until the FBI has the ability to actually connect the dots, they don't want to say it's Muslim extremism. I mean, that could have been workplace violence, right? But for their religion, that's all we had, is that they were Muslim when the shooting took place. You know, what's the difference between that and the guy that goes postal at the post office? It happens to be a guy that looks a lot like Alex Jones. You know?
Sure, but let's expand on that when we come back, Chief. Or I mean, you can keep going for a minute here. White supremacist groups like the Phineas priesthood, whatever, I don't care if you demonize them, because those are groups that need to be demonized. And radical Islam needs to be demonized because it's horrible. It's out of control. And so I don't think it's...
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. But we cannot paint all Muslims with a very broad brush. The vast majority is that the facts remain that the vast majority of Muslims are peaceful people of faith, and a lot of them are coming here. Why? because they don't want to be dealing with ISIS that don't want the
Oh, I totally agree with you. I mean, I have lots of Muslim friends I went to college with, nice people, and they all didn't want to be in that. That's why they came here.
Yep, absolutely.
We'll be back with Art Aceveda, Austin Police Chief. I'm Alex Jones. All right, I got to ask some tough questions of Austin Police Chief Art Aceveda before he leaves us here in about 25 minutes.
Wait 1 second, but I got to tell a story about you. I have to.
All right.
I went to Norway to make a presentation. So I'm in the middle of a city in Norway, big city, the capital, which is Oslo. I don't remember Oslo, I think it was. And this Nigerian kid is a Nigerian immigrant. And I'm going to look right at that camera of the audience. In Norway, I hope you watch this. I can't remember your name. Tries to sell me some energy or something. I go, I'm sorry, my friend. I'm from Austin.
What's energy?
Some subscription to some energy company. I don't know, electric company. And I said, I'm sorry, I'd love to help you, but I'm from Austin, Texas. And this kid from Nigeria, Norway, his eyes get this big. He goes, Austin, Texas. Do you know Alex Jones? And I just started, Alex Jones? Yes. I said, I know Alex Jones. I'm on his show all the time. He is brilliant. Oh, Lord. And I said, only Alex Jones can be reaching out all the way to a Somali kid living in
Or a Nigerian kid.
I'm excuse me, Nigeria. No, I'm sorry, it was Somali, not
Somali.
Nigerian.
Wow.
I said Nigerian as I misspoke. So I actually did an interview. I videotaped it of him.
And then you said you tried to get it to me.
I tried to get it to you. And
you must have my old number. Well, I want to see this interview. You still got it.
I got to find it. I've got to get go, hey, folks, sorry, here I'm here. And what's your name?
And then you also have your Alex Jones imitation, which is good.
Oh, that's Alex Jones. He's crazy.
Let me ask you this. Who do you really like for president?
Oh, I don't know.
By the way, you teased me earlier today.
I mean, I know police, you know, for
you said you teased me earlier today, and you said, Alex, I really can't be friends much longer or whatever because, you know, they're about to arrest you. And then I said, are you serious? You said, no, I'm joking. But I said, the reason I get a little concerned is you were here about 1.5 years ago, and I don't want to get into the story because I was asked not to get into it by the police out in California because they thought he might be with other groups. And you said, hey, you know, there's been some crazy guy, you know, here in town, a couple of them that we've stopped. And then I said, no, I haven't heard of this. He said, well, you're going to hear about it very, very soon. And then about a week later, I got contacted by the detectives out in California. I don't know how much you knew about it at the time, but I thought you were joking that day. No. And then it was true. And then it really, you know, made me appreciate the Austin Police Department, you know, actually being aware of what was going on just off the guy's social media. So it kind of makes it a paradox because I'm against NSA spying and I'm against going into people's private stuff and spying on them, obviously, and so are you. But then I have this article about the Austin Police Department goes and friends people on Facebook so that they can, with keywords, track calls for violence and things like that. So how do you balance that? Obviously, if something's public, because when I talked about this last time, people said, that's it, he's endorsed the NSA spying illegally, he's a total sellout. No. The Austin Police Department is monitoring people on social media saying they're going to come kill me and then alerting authorities in other jurisdictions when it's happening. How do you say now, oh, this is a horrible idea? So there's the paradox.
I mean, everything's a balance. And I think that people, you know, what we look for as a police department is I don't care who you want to vote for. I don't care if you even want to say, hey, we need to overthrow the government. No, to me, overthrowing the government, there's a way to do it legally. And there's a way to do it illegally. And legally means you organize and you vote and you get rid of the party or whoever you want to get rid of. But when people start talking about hurting people or hurting themselves or killing or doing anything that would do harm to others, I believe that that's what we're looking for, and I know that's what we're looking for, and that's what we should be looking for. And I don't think that's a bad thing. That's not something I'm going to apologize for because, you know, your views sometimes can be extreme in the minds of others, maybe not extreme enough for others. And if somebody wants to hurt you or your family or one of your listeners or viewers, and we should be looking for those type of threats. And so I'm not going to apologize for that. Now, if we're going to go try to get into somebody's personal account, then I believe that you must have probable cause and you must use a search warrant. But people know that there is no privacy out there when you tweet stuff and things of that nature. And so if there's no expectation of privacy, what would happen is if we didn't find it, if we didn't look for it, and then something seriously happened, we would be crucified for saying it was right out there in the open, and the police department didn't even bother doing anything about it.
Well, I've noticed the police department and the feds don't respond to stuff like, you know, I'd love to kill Alex. Well, they can tell that's some guy that says that all the time about a bunch of people. It's not real. But when somebody's all on there planning it all out and how they were there and how they're getting ready to do it, I mean, you can tell that has to be responded to.
Absolutely. And I think that we have a moral obligation to be on the lookout for credible threats and to investigate credible threats.
Well, in the case of San Bernardino, 2 years before, the FBI was specifically investigating that mosque and those two individuals, and then they were ordered to stand down by the Justice Department, saying it was politically incorrect. They even investigated those officers, those agents, with a task force. And then notice what happened. And then that got swept under the rug, but that was even in the California newspapers. So there you go, where people's hands are being tied because of political correctness. And that leads me to some of the articles dealing with traffic deaths here in Austin, the Austin American-Statesman. I'm not against people from Mexico or Latin America or China, but a lot of them have never driven, or in those countries. I mean, I've been in Mexico. People drive like maniacs in big cities. You know, ignore all the traffic signs. It's not a cliche. It's a fact. Same thing in China. They get here. They drive like maniacs. And I've talked to the prosecutors who've come here off record, and they say the judges give them $10 fines or nothing, including for DWIs. Now, I know you're going to deny all this because you have to, but I mean,
you won't hear me deny we're too lenient on people.
Really?
No, I think we're too lenient. I mean, this is, listen, Alex, we've had people drunk driving kill two people, and we give them probation. And it's not really the, here's part of the problem is that, you know, you can be sentenced by a jury, and sometimes
you are so good changing the subject. The illegals are the lion's share of it. They're getting away with everything. Why is that?
No, it's not the illegals. I mean, we are looking at data right now, just so you all
okay, well, I've been back-ended like 3 times in the last 20 years in Austin. It's always an illegal that doesn't speak English.
Well, just because it doesn't speak English doesn't mean they're illegal.
Oh, come on.
You're making an assumption there.
What if they got Mexican plates like happened once?
Well, then they're probably visiting here. I don't know. But here's what we're looking at right now, just so you know, because we're looking at data right now on fatalities and hit and runs, and where we can determine how many are unlicensed and suspended drivers. And we may be looking to ask the Council for Authority to impound vehicles of people that are driving with a suspended license.
Ooh.
And so
that's good.
Well, we're looking at the data to see if we can build.
Because why should I have to? Here's an example. They're letting flights come into JFK from outside the U.S. and not even checking any of their IDs. They're quote completing the smuggling process in McAllen, where the Border Patrol is ordered to load people on buses and ship them out of the country. But then I'm supposed to show all my ID and go through all these hoops. Now, if you deny those stories or say you don't know about them, I'll put them on screen. Look at that. 150 on flight from Mexico allowed to skip customs, leave JFK Airport. They keep doing it over and over again. I can play the clip of the emergency.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, my job is to keep the city of Austin safe. We're the second safest city, and that's what I'm going to focus on. And if that's going on, I'd have a problem with that.
So you tell your officers whether somebody is a drunk driver from Germany, China, South Africa, or Mexico, or Austin, Texas, arrest them.
Yes, absolutely. And some people think we're a sanctuary city, and we're not. I mean, we don't focus. If you're a day laborer at the Home Depot and they're and guys are there that may be undocumented immigrants, illegal immigrants, whatever term you want to use, it's not. I don't have the resources to go do ICE's job and go try to get those guys. But for their immigration status, they're not bothering anybody. But if you're out there committing crimes and stealing and robbing and drunk driving, we don't care whether you're legal or illegal. We're going to come after you. And if the federal government, ICE, comes to this city and tells me, hey, we've identified 15 MS-13 or some other drug trafficking organization or terrorist organization and they're illegal immigrants, and we need your help, we're going to cooperate fully and go after those people because we are not a sanctuary city. There is no sanctuary for those that want to do harm to people that live, work, and visit Austin, Texas.
Well, Austin is rated as one of the safest cities in the country. That's not hype. And you talk about, well, we're progressive. I think it's the mix of Texas politics and art and culture, and also the fact there's a lot of money here, so people, a lot of them have good jobs compared to the rest of the country. I don't think we're economically as bad off as many areas. I think that's one of the big reasons, but also we have a model police department overall from my research. But at the same time, look at other progressive cities like Chicago and New York, and I know there's some good cops in those cities, but there's also some really bad ones. I mean, I've been up there. I've seen them treat tourists in D.C. and New York. Nice families like total crap. I have talked to Austin police that have been treated bad in New York by police. I've been in New York with cops with their bellies hanging out, smoking cigars with their hats on sideways. And I have video of this. And I just look at that, and that is shameful. And I don't know, is that the unions up there or what creates that? Or maybe you disagree with that stereotype.
Well, listen, New York PD has got over, I think, 38,000, 40,000 police officers. You're going to end up having some rude people, just like I'm sure I've got rude people. I know I have rude people because I have to deal with them. But you also will look at NYPD trying to keep 7 million, 8 million, whatever that population is, that is an absolute target from violence extremist, Muslim extremist groups, and they do a pretty phenomenal job under some really challenging circumstances. So are there some rude people there? Yeah, but there's rude reporters, there's good and bad in everything. But on balance, I think when you look at their department, 38,000 strong, whatever it is now, they're pretty decent.
Well, here's what I know.
And I'm not here to defend NYPD.
No, I hear you. I hear you. But expanding on that, we know the police are bad in North Korea.
Well, the state is bad in North Korea.
Yes.
That's why when you call me communist, I get really upset.
Well, I mean, I know you your dad helped fight the communists, didn't he?
My father smuggled men up and down the country. We hid men in our house, anti-communist fighters. And so when these people call me communist, it's like, first of all, they have no clue what a communist is. They have no clue what they're talking about.
Sure. When I said you're acting like a communist, supporting some of that gun control,
yeah,
and then saying that the mayor pro tem didn't say after we register we're going to do that, that's when I was. But I don't literally think you're a communist.
I'm not advocating gun control. I'm advocating people control, controlling what people.
No, I know. But when I say, if Arte Acevedo wants to support this gun control, he ought to go back to Cuba and be a communist. That's what I was saying.
Okay. Pull that tape, please. I'm not sure that's exactly how he said it.
I don't remember exactly what I said. Well, what did I say?
Oh, yeah, he's a communist, that communist. But, you know, it's okay. It's all, you know.
Well, I already said I was sorry for that.
You did. We still love you.
Anyways.
Now you're going to get beat up for being too nice to me by your viewers.
No, I don't get beat up for that. No. Here's what's happened with me. And if you want me, I can give you a whole file on it, but I know you actually know all this. Okay, you know this. I've talked to a lot of police. They all know it. I have found that the police are the second most awake group in this country. The military, combat vets, people that have actually been in, special forces people. Let's just say 99% of the special forces people I've gotten to know, like, you know, Tim Kennedy, you name it, are totally awake. General enlisted and others, you know, 60, 70, 80% awake. Mid-level officers into high level are awake. And then the next awake group is police on average. So why should a patriot or somebody that's into restoring the republic get fixed into this whole thing that our problem is the police instead of reforming the overall system? And then I see Soros, not just here, but in Ukraine, in Syria, and all over running anti-police programs that they then use to overthrow the government. That's what they did in Ukraine. He brags he did that. Mm-hmm. So I'm telling you, they're running a real leftist movement to build the beginnings of violent revolution in this country with the sacrificial lamb of the police. And so I'm here warning the police about that. And the police tell me, look, we already know that. We've known that for 30, 40 years. But yes, we see that happening. So to me, it's a natural ally with the police and especially the military. If they're so awake, why should we, the patriots, be tricked into an adversarial position?
Well, you said a lot right there, but the bottom line is that the police is the people. We are the people. We are members of the community. We come from the community. We don't bring them from another planet. We're the children of your neighbors. We're your neighbors, and we will always stand for what's right. And on balance, I think that American policing is still the best in the free world.
Well, I've got the article here where it does have you saying that you should impound the vehicles of those without licenses. And so are you guys just going to use the license plate reading cameras? How many license plate reading cameras are you guys hooked into?
We really we're just starting to get some now. We're having we had some problems with the technology in the first generation. You know, LPRs, a lot of people don't like them.
I don't like them.
But, you know, it's a great investigative tool that if you get kidnapped by one of the crazies that might want to try and kidnap to try to recover you, you know, it's
well, see, I'd be glad for it to be turned on for specific people you're hunting for, but that's constitutional. But what about when they grab all of it?
Because, but Alex, here's the problem: is grabbing the data isn't the problem. It's how you use the data. And so, let's say we had an LPR on 35, hypothetically, which we don't have, by the way, so everybody don't go freak out. But we don't go in there unless we have a specific reason, and we find out that we're looking for a white car that ran, you know, killed somebody or robbed a bank, and we can use that LPR information for legitimate police purposes, because you don't have a expectation of privacy when you're driving down the street. You don't, or walking down the street. I think to me, we don't. It's not technology that we need to fear. It's misuse of technology, and so we have.
But here's what I'm getting at: if you know a certain car with a certain plate has committed a crime, then you turn I know they have these filters. You turn it on just to look for that plate or a group of plates, and then it's disregarding, just like they've done in California for a decade, police plates and other plates of government because you don't want them in the databases. You have to program it that way. Then it could be used for kidnapped kids or bank robbers or things. But just gathering it all, I mean, I've seen the documentary where they're just driving around through a parking lot, and this person's got a warrant, this person's, you know, doesn't have a license. And then you know full well, like the illegals standing in front of a Home Depot. You guys are going to go through, and the illegals aren't going to have, you know, the proper plates. They're going to be left alone. But then the fat, plump citizen, whether they be Hispanic, white, or black, they're going to get pulled over because they don't have insurance, and the license plate reader shows that they haven't followed that, so they're going to get the ticket.
Yeah, but that's not what we would ever use LPRs for. LPR, for me, is a tool that we would use to investigate serious crime.
By the way, you do have LPRs all over the place because you hook into the federal LPRs to the Threat Fusion Center.
You gotta love Alex Jones. Nothing gets past him, huh?
Oh, I do that 20 years ago. What about the microphones you guys got up all over town?
By the way,
the gunshot detectors that are really microphones?
We need to know when you're leaving town, because we haven't changed the battery in yours in a while at your house.
All you gotta do is dial into my home security system. It's already got it all set up for you.
I don't have cameras inside my house. They're all over the outside of the house, but not inside the house.
I was about to say, don't stick them inside.
I don't stick them inside. And you know, so we share some of the same concerns. I don't want cameras inside my house. I put them outside my house.
Well, they admit that Hackers Forever have the whole databases of those.
Yeah, so and so that's the point. People can hack into your system and try to get inside your house.
Well, that's another reason I don't think that they should have GPS on all the police cars and make them have cameras on at all times, because then it sets the precedent where everybody has to do that, and we're all being monitored by Big Brother.
Yeah, well, we want the automatic vehicle locators because it's an officer safety component for us. Just like we're actually going to get them on these radios.
Always for the safety.
Right here. Well, when my officer goes in foot pursuit and we can't find him.
No, I know it's all got good uses.
But everything good can be misused. That's why we have to be vigilant.
Look, it's really simple, folks. George Soros wants us to get in a war with the police so they can then have a big enough crisis to go after the guns. They want to stir up a civil war. It's why I was against the known operatives that were out there at the Oregon situation trying to stir that up. I told folks exactly how that would end. This is idiocy. We're winning politically with libertarian ideas. We're Republicans who aren't perfect but represented more than Democrats are winning almost all the governorships, almost all the new congressional seats. It's a total sweep happening right now. That's why MSNBC is preaching race war in the name of fighting racism. Political correctness has gotten so bad, they are now in Oregon State trying to pull down quotes of Martin Luther King saying he was a racist. I'm not kidding. And in Seattle, don't have brown paper bags, it's racist. So they want to create just this hysteria where we're all fighting with each other because black unemployment has doubled under Obama. He has to change the subject. Now, obviously, if a Donald Trump gets in or a Ted Cruz, we're going to hold their feet to the fire. But I've never seen such balkanization. Let me ask you that question. Austin Police Chief Art Aceveda, you're with us this little short segment and one more, and I appreciate you coming in your busy schedule. Who are you as a private citizen liking in the campaign? What do you think of Donald Trump?
It was entertaining. I just hope he doesn't deport me. I'm just telling him, don't deport me, bro, because I'm an immigrant.
You're a U.S. citizen.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And but, you know, listen, I just anybody that throws their hat in the ring for something, regardless whether they're a Democrat or Republican or Libertarian or Green Party, whoever, they're at least participating. And I would just tell your listeners that the number one thing that you can do to protect liberty and to impact the political process in this country is vote. Vote. Your vote matters. Please vote. I don't care who you vote for. You can vote for whoever you want.
What's it like to see Ted Cruz? You know, his dad was an anti-communist guy, just like your dad. I know your dad was involved with the CIA and a bunch of other stuff. Cruz's dad has a similar type background fighting Castro. I mean, Rubio, it's fake. They were here way before. His dad was a bartender. I'm not knocking that, but they don't have that anti-communist background, so I get why you get mad at that. I mean, Cruz really is a smart guy. Does it give you some pride to see, you know, a Cuban-American right there in the lead for president? I mean,
it just gives me pride to see that only in this country, whether it's the son of a Kenyan, you know, and President Barack Obama, or the son of a Cuban immigrant and an American mother and Ted Cruz. I mean, it just gives me pride that we live in a nation where only in this country can the offspring of those men from other countries, you know, Hispanic and African American, only in this country is it.
Folks do forget that in other countries, it's very hard. Like, why did Italians come here? Because it was a caste system. If you came from a cobbler that made shoes, that's what you had to be. Or go down. You couldn't go up.
I mean, this is a great country. I mean, with warts and all, you know, my old man used to say that that anti-communist old man used to say, kids, from here to the moon, there's no better place on earth.
Well, I mean, looking at that, communism produces a few people on top. I don't get how they sell it as a people's ideology, or Bernie Sanders, who really does promote communism, not socialism, which is bad enough. I mean, how are they selling socialism in America when it doesn't work?
Well, I don't know if they're selling it. I can just tell you that my dad used to say, hey, communism is great as long as you're the government with eating steak every day while everybody else is getting, you know, a pound of rice for 30 days. There's, you know, a good communist to me, you know the answer.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like a right-wing extremist statement over here.
I mean, hey, I have no use for communists. I just don't.
Well, you're right, is that it's total slavery everywhere it's implemented. And then...
No, it's a slavery to the state.
We've got 5 more minutes, and then, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to continue on here today. We've got David Knight coming up. Dr. Edward Group's going to be in studio, and we've got the proof, the Zika virus, the Rockefeller Foundation, they own it. Isn't that sweet? It's all coming up back in 70 seconds with the third hour. Art Aceveda is here, Austin Police Chief. And Art, again, I told you that the blood taking, I didn't think that those warrants were fully done properly. Got to be a little mean here at the end. You've defended it, but Texas court and others have said it's unconstitutional.
Well, not the way we do it. So I don't know what you're talking about. We believe me, we're doing something unconstitutional. We'd already been sued and lost.
So, like, how do you do it?
We get search warrants. We don't just do it on a willy-nilly. We develop probable cause and we get search warrants and. You know,
but you have a judge kind of rubber stamping it, right? Because the person's not in a court; the judge is on the phone.
Well, most of the time, the magistrate's right there on duty, so we have a judge on duty.
You have an RV and all that.
We use a phlebotomist at the jail, yeah. And so, you know, listen, I know that people hate that, but you know, we follow the law, and that's all I can tell you. And when you see so many people dying in my city, in our city, in a city that we love, and around the country. You know, don't drink and drive. It's very simple. It's a very, very simple way to avoid getting a blood test is don't get arrested for drunk driving.
Other topics. We only got a few minutes left. Other points you haven't gotten into that are important for the viewers and listeners out there.
I think that one of the things that's really important right now in this country is for people to not buy into the false narrative that policing is out of control. It's just not. Is it perfect? No. I've seen some really bad policing. I've dealt with bad policing here. We need to do, as a profession, a better job in some cities of holding officers accountable. But by and large, American policing is better than it's ever been. Our officers are better trained, better educated, better equipped, and more professional than ever. And that is an absolute truth.
Well, I'll say this. I've seen over the years some Austin cops on power trips. I won't even get near 6th Street. There were some good restaurants back in the day down there because I guess they had the special units of cops, some of them that acted like, you know, goons, looked like crazy bouncers. I don't see as many of those. And most Austin police I run into are actually cheerful, helpful, and nice. And that's just refreshing. And so I hope that your brand of policing, because it's gotten better with you here. I mean, I disagree with a lot of stuff you do, but got to be honest, overall it's gotten a lot better, so we appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think, you know, and here's the bottom line, folks. whether you agree with your police chief or whoever, we should never stop engaging each other, because I think that a lot of times by engaging each other, we end up understanding each other. But more importantly, people need to know you're watching and paying attention.
Absolutely. Listen, you didn't know this was going to happen.
No.
I was talking to my dad a few months ago, and I said, I really just don't want to give money to churches this year. I want to start giving it, you know, to different groups. I always give money to the Salvation Army, Meals on Wheels, things like that. I don't tell people how much money we give, because most of it goes back to the operation. That's where the real profits we make just go into expanding, reaching out. But when the Austin police, you know, have been looking out for many citizens, not just myself and others, they get shot, they get killed. You know, some on the left cheer about it. It makes me very upset. So I'm giving money to the fallen officer who was responding in part to a guy that you guys had reported on here in Texas and California. That officer was killed. I'm going to send money specifically to his family and also to the Fallen Officer Fund in that county. But I wanted to give you this check for the Austin Police Department Charities Program, just for my thanks.
So that's fantastic. Thank you very much. And this is for the Austin Cops for Charities, and that's going to be unlocked, and it'll be really helpful.
Well, that's nothing for the police officers that get run over, you know, out there changing tires or get shot at or killed. And I know that it's easy for the system to blame everything on you.
You just said something, changing tires. My cops, I get letters all the time, help citizens change tires for citizens. And some officers somewhere might think that that's demeaning or beneath them. And it gives me a great deal of pride that our folks do that kind of stuff.
I see it a lot, and that's what good cops do.
Yeah, we're here to serve. We're peacemakers, we're peacekeepers, we're guardians, and we're here to serve.
Well, and that check is also in part to tell George Soros go to hell.
I don't know anything about that.
He's a known Nazi collaborator, but a communist on top of it, and a billionaire who's tax exempt.
Okay.
Art, thanks for coming in.
Good to see you. Happy New Year.
Okay, you can tell Soros you love him.
No, I don't know him. So.
You know nothing.
I'm Sergeant Schultz.
Yeah. All right, I'll walk you out. Thanks for coming in. We'll be back, folks. From the front lines of the information war, I'm your host, Alex Jones. Dr. Edward Group, our good friend, is going to be with us for the rest of the hour. Just briefly on why I had Police Chief Arte Saveda here in studio with us. Behind the scenes, I've talked to that guy, obviously, when he's saying the only good communist is a wink, you know, dead communist, is that guy knows what's going on. He knows how the cow ate the cabbage, and he plays along with the whole liberal, you know, charade thing. And that's what I found with most police. They're not just telling you what you want to hear. That's what really happens when the rubber meets the road, is they're constitutionalists. There are some bad ones. They want us to, though, make the whole fight about that because they're the most visible symbol of the government. And we have robots replacing the troops, robots replacing us at the factories by design to displace humanity in the globalist own words. The driverless cars, all of it is to build an anti-human century. Not the American century like Marco Rubio says, which is a neocon statement, that, you know, New American Century. Ask, is he a neocon? That's the name of their seminal paper, The New American Century, 2001. We have to come together as humanity and recognize that we're being manipulated by the technocrats using scientific social control. Now, when somebody does you wrong, or somebody runs over you, or somebody is doing things that are criminal, you oppose them and you stand up against them. But you don't do it just because they're black or they're white or they're a cop or they're a woman. And you also don't just vote for somebody because they're black or white or a woman. You know, we have an interview coming up. It's a joke piece that Biggs did. It translates well on TV, somewhat well on radio, but it's really funny. A secret to Hillary coin toss discovered is the name of the video. It's up on Infowars.com, where he dressed up like Hillary Clinton as a stunt. And he comes across women who just in a cliched way, you know, appear to be into girl power. And they say that. They say, we're going to vote for Hillary because she's a girl, period. And they're very, very honest about that. Just like people saying they're going to vote for Obama because he's black, he's black, he's black. That's the famous quote. The lady goes, he's black, he's black, he's black. You know, I mean, I wouldn't vote for somebody because they were white unless they agreed with me and had a good record of that. I mean, I would vote for somebody who was black in a second. A woman I could literally, in fact, I would enjoy seeing a smart woman in the White House that was a patriot. I would relish that. In fact, I wouldn't just put up with it because I want to kill all these cliches. The problem is, a lot of times in history, you get women that are more diabolical, smarter, and more manipulative than men. There's this idea that women are going to come in and fix everything. The women running all these wars right now. So again, I'm tired of men being scapegoated. I'm tired of any group of humans being scapegoated like we're separated from each other. And that's how we're being controlled. So that's the bottom line here. I'm here to beat the globalist, have our political ideology of liberty take the country back. Now, we're going to get into Dr. Group called me last night and then this morning, and he said, no, I mean, I have it. And nobody else has this. I can't believe it. And we have some special reports we're going to air at the bottom of the hour that Jakari Jackson put together on this a year and a half ago on Bill and Melinda Gates and the mosquitoes and engineering them, but that the Zika virus didn't come from Latin America. And this is already broken in the news. But what's new is that it came from the Rockefeller Foundation. They actually own it, Zika virus, ATCC registered VR-84TM. They got it registered, patented, and trademarked. 1947 it was discovered, patented in 1952. And now, magically, we have this top bioweapons expert saying he believes it has been souped up and engineered. So we're going to be breaking that down in a moment. But before we do that, I just had a whole hour, skipped a break, didn't plug anything. I'm going to plug right now. We believe in win-win, folks, treating people like we want to be treated. That's why we develop nutraceuticals with Dr. Group and other top researchers, chemists, scientists, you name it. He's one of our advisors, to come up with products like Anthroplex that is an original product that he made just for us. And this is a base system to make super male or super female vitality work even better. And let me tell you, folks, just the amount of one of the herbs in there, you go to the gas station, there'll be the 2 or 3 pills for anywhere from $9 to $25, where you think, oh, I'm paying this much, and you take it, and whoa, it really works. I've never done it. I've talked to folks that have, who have trouble in that department. I don't sell this as a sex aid, okay? The fact is, I sell it as energy, as outlook. And again, it's not like speed, like ephedrine or something. It is natural. It just helps get your body pumping and going in the way you need to be going. And Dr. Group is here till we go to break to tell us about the latest product at InfoWarsLife.com, Anthroplex, that out of the gates, and we do this all the time with a new product, we discount it out of the gates to get you to try it, knowing that you're going to love it. It'll sell out. The amount we have, it might be 2, 3, 4 months till we get more. Just like I told you, DNA Force would sell out, sold out. And we don't just tell you it's selling out to create that gimmick of artificial scarcity. It really happens until we really get scaled up to where, we don't really run out of the silver bullet very often. So InfoWarsLife.com, Anthroplex, 15% off and free shipping for the next 2 days only when you get it with super male or female vitality. So now, let's go to Dr. Group. Group, we're going to break, obviously, in just 3 minutes. And you're going to have the floor when we come back on Zika. Thank you for being here. But get into this for us, if you can, please, sir. Why Anthroplex is so important and why you need both this and super male. You'll get great results from my experience with either one. This baby, though, is supercharged, and it's less expensive as well because it uses dry herbs. Obviously, the super male is so great, uses the wet herbs, cold press. Why do you call this the foundation to start the fire, and then the super male takes you to the next level?
Well, we just look at the base problem that's going on right now all over the world, which is the endocrine disrupting chemicals, the amount of estrogen that men have, the femininity of men, and what's going on even in children right now with low testosterone levels, low sperm count levels, and the problems that in the attack that we're seeing on the endocrine systems of both male and female. So I'm always looking for ways to boost that and to make it more effective and naturally get the body to start producing these hormones and balancing themselves. That's why hormone replacement therapy, low T, all of that is such a booming business right now, because so many people have the problem. So it's really hard when you look at a combination of herbs and minerals that you can put into a formula that will actually help every individual, because technically every man is different. One guy might have severely decreased testosterone levels, growth hormone levels, DHEA levels, hormones out of whack because he drinks tons of fluoride and has an iodine deficiency and everything else. And somebody else might not. So the whole purpose of us constantly working together, Alex, and talking about this for 2 years now is that it took 7 years to develop super male vitality. I mean, we had to find the perfect unison and strength of the individual herbs, find the herbs we wanted to use, put them together, do the cold extraction, the Spagyr-X extraction technique that we invented that nobody else in the world has, which actually breaks the cell walls and ferments the plant and adds the salts back in and causes the therapeutic value to be 10 times, maybe 15 times what you would get from any natural supplements out there. And we perfected the super male, and we're constantly looking for new suppliers and to make it even better and stronger. But during that process, we also wanted to add a few other things. But there comes a point when you're developing an herbal supplement where you don't want to put too much or too many herbs in one formula, because the more you put in, the more you have to take out, because you might have 500 milligrams as an active therapeutic dose of Tribulus terrestris, let's say. But if you want to put another herb in there, you might have to back that down to 400, and then it's going to take away the therapeutic benefit. So we wanted to keep the super male vitality strong, but we also wanted to add, because there's such a problem out there, another component that would boost the effects that people can take on a daily basis, men. That included zinc. I mean, we could not figure out a way to mix the zinc in with the super male vitality. And even if we did, you know, we didn't know. We don't want to mess with the Rolls Royce when we know that it's a fine-tuned engine and it's ready to go. So what we decided to do was, how can we add a few other components in there that would actually boost the effectiveness of the super male vitality, and at the same time address different issues that the male might have, so it would be a full approach. And one of those was zinc. And zinc is actually necessary for the production of testosterone. There's more and more studies coming out that zinc is essential for hormone balancing.
What is in the goat weed? Well, I mean, everybody says that's so great. You've got one of the purest, strongest organic forms of it. What's so magic about the goat weed?
Well, the horny goat weed was given that name because years ago in India, they noticed that a certain time of the year, this weed would grow and the goats would eat it, and they would just go crazy with all the female goats. So that's how it was developed. It's called epimedium. And what that's been proven to do over thousands of years, or at least in the last 100 with the limited amount of studies and tests that have been done on it, is increase sexual pleasure, help balance the male hormones. It can actually be used for women as well. But it really kind of resets and brings the hormone balance, improves sperm motility, and increases testosterone levels.
So it counters the stuff they've been throwing at us. Let's go back. Now, what's the next one? What's the next ingredient?
So those are the two that we added that are not currently in super male.
Then it's also got Tribulus.
Tribulus terrestris is in the super male vitality, but this is an extra boost, for example. So let's say you have an engine and you have a race car and you're driving down the street and your race car is super fast, and that would be the super male vitality.
You've got Tonga Cat.
The Tongkat Ali, that's also an ingredient in super male vitality, but those are just giving you that extra burst, that extra burst of ingredients to take you over the edge.
And you know, I don't want to say this is a poor man's version, because it's not. It's got different ingredients. It's got some of the others. It is a little less because it's the dry herbs, even though they're sourced and organic. Still, when you get it, and you know, and there's still fresh fruit before you crush it, which is why we keep running out sometimes. I also said, look, I know we're perfect, everybody loves this and everything, we try to be the best, but could I have a dry herb so that when we run out of the wet herb, I'm not out of super male or female for 6 months like we've been before? And so that's also part of this thought process, is something that does a lot of the same things, but for less money, and that we can keep in supply. But you explain, well, I can't do that. Super male is the best we could possibly come up with. So we come up with something that is a base for it, has some of the same things, but misses some of the other things. And so overall, it's a win-win. See how it works for you. I know this. Then I'm going to be done talking about it, because I want to get into this whole virus situation. I know this, and I hate to get into personal stuff, but I went a year ago, had my blood test. They took 4 ampules at a top medical doctor just to see how I was doing, to see how high my testosterone was, how high my sugars were, just basically how my liver function was. Everything was great, except I was borderline. I wasn't pre-diabetic. I was borderline pre-diabetic. I mean, I was going into the sugar zone. Since then, making some dietary changes, I've gone back to what they call really healthy. But then I've gone back and had my blood taken, and we're going to publish these facts soon and show people what I've been able to do religiously taking the products. I'm bad about only taking them a few times a week. I take stuff all the time now. I mean, I take the whole line now, and people can see the difference. I'm going to take my shirt off soon, take a photo. Literally, I've almost got a six-pack. You can see it on the side now, even better than it was 3 months ago. It's insane. My problem is, on Anthroplex, it gets me even more crazed than super male. So this is going to be different for everybody out there. But the medical doctor said, hey, you know, you're 40-something, you want some Cialis. Just, you know, nice thing. I'll give you a prescription for it. And I said, I don't really have trouble, doc. But I said, you know, I've never tried that out. I'm 40 years old at the time, 41, now 42. 42 in a couple days. I said, yeah, I'll try it. I took it, barely noticed, okay? Barely noticed. But you take super male or an Anthroplex, it is dramatic. I mean, it is dramatic. And again, I hate to get into the libido angle of things. That's not, if you go back 3-4 years, how I pitched super male. It's the energy, it's the stamina, the better mood, wanting to work out. That's what Shane Steiner talked about and his wife talked about. It's just that that added area is where you know there's a big difference. And there's no debating that what's in this is powerful. Because you were telling me yesterday, or maybe it was last week, whenever you were here, you were saying, you know, Alex, no, it was yesterday on the phone. That's right. It all mixes together. You were like, oh, yeah, if you take a bunch of super male and take this, it's like a Viagra. And I said, like a Viagra? This doesn't work as good as that. Because then, obviously, I was sitting there being honest, saying this Cialis didn't do anything. I wanted, as a scientific test, to then get a prescription for the other. And all it did was make my face turn red and give me a headache. And I'm not knocking it. I'm sure it's great for some other people. But how breakthrough is it, how amazing herbs are that God gave us? I mean, it's insane, Dr. Group.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want people to think that, hey, this is something that is just all men need to take, because this is actually for a serious problem that we're suffering from today, and it's called andropause, menopause. I mean, women go through these hormonal changes in their life, and that's menopause. And
ours is more gradual. We don't know. We've already basically hit menopause by 35 or 40 because of what? Because of the chemicals in the food and water, the plastics.
Exactly. We have an estrogen dominance that's going on. We have low testosterone, altered hormone levels because our endocrine systems are out of whack. And this is actually a solution to help you naturally. Obviously, you want to avoid all the phthalates and the chemicals and the xenoestrogens and everything that's causing your hormone imbalance and the estrogen mimicking chemicals. And you want to use the iodine to get rid of the fluoride and the chlorine and the bromine. And you want to change your diet and eat organic and all those other things, which help balance your hormones naturally anyway. But the fact of the matter is we don't get those hormones back. We don't slowly start increasing our hormones as men as we age. We keep declining and declining.
People ask, where are the men? It's an admitted globalist program. We're coming back to cover the mosquitoes here in a moment and then shift off of this. But bottom line, there is a program to demasculate. There is a program to have chemicals in the food and water and in the plastics, the bisphenol A, on record that is making male fish and male frogs, both fish and amphibians, turn bisexual or stop reproducing entirely or become female. Because in those species, if they're hit with hormones, they can actually switch sexes in some of them. So some roosters are now turning into chickens. And I didn't believe that when I saw it in the news last year. I didn't know they could switch. But, I mean, it is crazy what the chemicals are doing to everybody. It is just nuts. And then women are sold, oh, it's great to be super feminine. It's not super feminine to have all this estrogen. It's what gives you breast cancer. It's what accelerates your aging. Women have way too much estrogen, too.
If you're a guy and you're not waking up with an erection like 3 times a week, then you most likely have low testosterone levels. So, I mean, you think of how many billions of men out there that are being affected by high estrogen and low testosterone. And believe it or not, it's not when you have high testosterone that you're angry and you're aggressive and you're irritable. It's usually when you have low testosterone is when you're irritable and depressed. And it's not only that, there's a whole list of symptoms that comes along with andropause and low testosterone and low hormone levels in men. Just the way you feel. You get tired in the afternoon. I've heard some guys with low testosterone say they drink 12 cups of coffee a day.
Insane. That burns out your adrenals.
So why not address it naturally with herbs that have been proven year after year after year after year? And
sure, exactly. Because results will vary overall. All I know is dynamite. I mean, absolutely dynamite with the stamina, with the weightlifting, with the swimming, with the, I mean, instead of drinking coffee to go on Coast to Coast AM or something when they invite me on, I will go and take 5 or 6 squirts of Super Male Vitality and boom, it has that effect, but it's natural. It's not a stimulant. It gets my body to naturally release the things that stimulate it. Folks, the new product is available. Anthroplex, available at InfoWarsLife.com. Dr. Group, thank you for developing this amazing product.
Thank you.
We're going to come back on the other side and shift gears into how else they're manipulating us, Zika. You're going to get the incredible facts straight ahead. All right, before we get into the Zika virus and the fact that it's ATTCC registered VR-84, owned by the Rockefeller Foundation and now deployed, before we get into all that, remember I had the author of the U.S. and UN ratified Biological Weapons Treaty, the global treaty, on last Friday, Dr. Francis Boyle, saying he's talked to his high-level genetic engineer associates, and they concur. They've taken Zika and souped it up because it now, and he said this before it was in the news, it is being transferred by sex and saliva. But he's saying it could also be a cover for other things in the vaccines that are causing the same type of mutations in utero. So we're not sure exactly what's happening, but boy, it is suspicious, like Hillary winning 6 coin tosses in a row in all the disputed areas of Iowa. We also have Joe Biggs's piece coming up later where he did the joke piece on Hillary with that in downtown Austin yesterday. But before we do that, here's a report from a year and a half ago that Jakari Jackson did getting into Bill and Melinda Gates and their production of genetically modified mosquitoes.
Now, malaria is, of course, transmitted by mosquitoes. I brought some here just so you could experience this. We'll let those roam around the auditorium a little bit. There. There's no reason only poor people should have the experience.
That was Bill Gates laughing about how he plans to use mosquitoes to force Medicaid against malaria. With horrible side effects accompanying voluntary vaccinations, I, for one, want to be in control of the needle, whether it comes from a pharmacist or a mosquito's face. In a world where taking too much cough syrup can send you to the hospital, can't taking too many vaccinations do the same thing? That's exactly what Nazi scientists were hoping for during World War II. They wanted to use mosquitoes as bioweapons to poison their opposition, a dream that was fulfilled when they switched out the mosquitoes for ticks on Plum Island. Years ago, the U.S. government brought Nazi minds to the States under Operation Paperclip to carry out various scientific functions. On Plum Island, Eric Traub experimented with ticks as bioweapons. In the 1970s, Lyme, Connecticut had an outbreak of what is now known as Lyme disease. There have been other strange occurrences that many speculate are related to the work done on Plum Island. So go ahead, opt out of vaccinating your child. Bill Gates and Eric Traub have the medicine. You can find more reports at Infowars.com.
And we're back live. I want to go to another clip of Bill Gates where he's talking about equations at a TED Talk and showing what numbers have to be brought down to zero. And he points at humans being brought down to zero, and the crowd laughs. And again, I won't go over the background because we want to go into the specifics here, but Bill and Melinda Gates and their whole foundation and Microsoft itself is a giant IBM front of Planned Parenthood. His father ran Planned Parenthood, and it's the whole shadow government. His father was in Army intelligence after World War II and basically was in charge of bringing a lot of the science over to IBM, and IBM had financed Hitler from the beginning. Just search Thomas Watson, founder of IBM, with Hitler. You'll see the photos, the films. He won the highest award in Germany, one that Hitler didn't even get. So he was considered the most important man in Germany and would actually travel there during the first year or so of World War II. Just like the King of England had to abdicate because he got caught being a Nazi. In pop culture, they tell you it was because he married an American woman. Pure bull, though she was a big Nazi. We're not saying it's a Nazi conspiracy. We're saying that the technology, the ideas that kind of came from here went to Germany and then came back home to where they came from. So let's go to Bill Gates talking about population control.
First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, health care, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
You lower population.
But there we see an increase of about 1.3.
Oh.
Now, malaria is, of course, transmitted by mosquitoes. I brought some here just so you could experience this. We'll let those roam around the auditorium a little bit. There. There's no reason only poor people should have the experience.
Poor people.
And again, I didn't give much direction this morning. There's another clip where he talks about bringing the number down to 0 specifically, and I laugh that we'll find that and get that. I saw Rob do it in the studio. We'll see if he sends over the specific longer one I want to get. But it's important to focus on this Gates stuff. We'll create a super clip of it in the near future. But this is his known background. This is what he stands for. He gave a Bill Moyers interview 20 years ago that we found clips of online where he breaks down his whole plan. So here's a mad scientist involved in weather weapons, a guy involved in controlling our schools, our education. He's the biggest funder of gun control in the U.S. Then it's Bloomberg. He's the guy running the elections in Iowa and many other areas. He's involved in everything. And now here he is. Let's get into Zika, Dr. Group, and what you think's going on. New weapon to fight Zika, the mosquito. When it comes to killing humans, no other animal even comes close, Bill Gates, whose foundation fights disease globally, has written. So hiding in plain view, and then we have Zika virus, ATCCR-VR84, owned by the Rockefeller Foundation, blood from experimental Pharis sentinel rhesus monkeys, Uganda, 1947. And now it pops up in Latin America. And tell us what it supposedly does, Dr. Group. You've got the floor.
Well, there's no doubt that this is bioengineered, and the scary thing is when you start messing around, we know how bad GMO crops are, but GMO animals, we know about transhumanism, we know about all the experimentation with genetic codes being spliced into animals. Now we're talking about genetically modified mosquitoes and created bioweapons. I mean, I guess they can say they found it in 1947 in Uganda in the rhesus monkey. And then the Rockefeller Foundation back then involved in different types of biowarfare and vaccine production and viral studies in South America, went ahead and patented that virus. Why is it that all of a sudden it's showing up now? And the scary thing about genetically modified mosquitoes is mosquitoes are a vector. It's just like a needle. It's just like a vaccine. So all of the people that out there saying, well, I don't want to be vaccinated anymore. Well, guess what? You're going to have genetically modified mosquitoes running around and flying around everywhere.
And he admits that's his plan. In fact, he's the one pioneering vaccines in fruit and vegetables where it grows pharmacologically in the fruit. You don't have a choice. He's all about making you take it. And I guess they're making us take Zika.
They're making us take Zika. What they're trying to, it's if you trace back the Zika virus to the Rockefeller Foundation, and then you look at Oxitec, which, by the way, mysteriously was just bought out by Intrexon, and if you trace back the board of directors and everything like that for Intrexon is majorly owned by Fidelity Investments. I mean, you can look at, you can easily just keep going back and tracing this whole trail. The question is why? Why all of a sudden? I mean, every 2 years we have something, usually exactly in 2 years. I said last time with Ebola that was a test. You agreed that was a big test to see how the public was going to react with the fear, everything else. We knew that there wasn't really going to be a vaccine, even though we heard they were working on one. I think with the Zika virus, it's, well, number one, Intrexon's stock has gone up, the genetically modified mosquito production company. And
oh, isn't that just cute?
And now all of a sudden they said today that there's an Indian corporation that has 2 vaccines. So with this, you're obviously going to look at getting people sick, reducing the population. You're going to look at vaccine production, of course, and you're also going to test and see what this does to the environment and how it affects all phases of different animals as well. Right now, I just saw just a few minutes ago, actually, that this company in India has developed 2 vaccinations. Or I mean, anytime stuff like this comes out, this has already been in the works for years and years.
And so we said, I bet there's going to be a vaccine. It's already being made.
And
how convenient.
Company, I can't remember the name of the company in India.
We'll just Google it. Indian company. I saw it yesterday. Indian company develops Zika vaccine. You can pull it up, guys.
Yeah, funded, by the way, by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Of course.
Yeah. So the best thing you can do, in my opinion.
World's first Zika virus vaccine made in India, claims scientists. Bill and Melinda Gates funding it. Thank God they love us.
So the big story here is pay attention to this and be aware that if this can happen, also you have to look at what's going on in Brazil. Why are all these mosquitoes being released in Brazil? Well, you have the Olympics in Brazil, Summer Olympics in 2016. You're going to have representatives and people, contestants, athletes, fans from every country in the world in one central location. And that's where they're releasing this virus. So it's a perfect vector to spread this disease all over. Now they say it can be.
But even better, then everybody's got to have the vaccine when you, quote, get your shots to go to Brazil. And then who knows what will be in the Bill and Melinda Gates developed Zika vaccine.
Exactly. The vaccine. And now they're telling people not to have babies till 2018. And the pesticide levels that what I hear are going to be sprayed not only in South America, Brazil, but all over the world.
The USDA just approved a new super Roundup herbicide. I've got that article right here, actually.
So you're going to have billions and billions of tons of extra pesticides being sprayed upon us. And you're going to have more hospital visits, which is good for the pharmaceutical.
Let me ask you this question, Dr. Group. Why isn't anybody other than the top bioweapons expert in the U.S. and us and a few others pointing out this is suspicious, that Bill and Melinda Gates, they're connected to Zika. They say they want to reduce our population. The White House Science Czar wants to do it. You've got the Rockefeller Foundation owns it. They're developing a vaccine. They're the usual suspects. I mean, why are they so obvious about what they do? I think it's where Bill Gates opens up the mosquitoes in the crowded room and says, it's okay, it'll reduce our population, and points at the board with an equation to bring us down to zero. I mean, he's just there doing it. He goes, there's no reason only the poor people should have to go through this. And he's actually telling you metaphysically what he's doing to you in front of you. For some reason in lore, that's what bad guys have to do. They have to tell you first what they're going to do.
Well, see, the genetically modified mosquitoes are males, and what they're designed to do is mate with the females in nature. So what you're doing is you're taking a genetically modified mosquito made by man, and you're introducing it into nature, which is a natural mosquito. So automatically, you're going to have alterations in genetic codes for the offspring. So what it's designed to do is stop the female mosquito from replicating that Zika virus, and it's supposed to kill the larva. The problem with that is, and the reason, if you look into the research, why all those mosquitoes were released in Brazil.
It can actually soup them up. It's actually, they're souping them up, claiming it's an eradication program. And after they do that, suddenly it explodes and gets worse. So the headline is, after Bill and Melinda Gates tinker with Zika, it gets worse.
Well, what they're failing to mention is the fact that Brazil has the highest level of tetracycline, which is an antibiotic, of any other country. And more tetracycline is used for animals and humans than anywhere else in the world. And there's high levels of tetracycline in all the water
supply. That's right.
supply.
We think America is cheating with chemicals and with drugs for the animals. You think we have beef, folks? We have nothing compared to Brazil or Chile or all those countries. We don't produce the beef here. And absolutely, they are just feeding them whatever they want down there.
Well, what happens is these genetically modified mosquitoes, if there's in the presence of tiny, tiny amounts of tetracycline, it does not kill the larva like it's supposed to of the female.
It makes them drug resistant, including the Zika.
Yeah, so they've even admitted up to 15% of the mosquitoes are now new strains of mosquitoes that are being developed with the Zika. So it doesn't even, with the tetracycline in the water.
And by the way, imagine all the thousands of cross-species chimeras, the pharmacological crops. Now, zoologically, you don't get diseases your dog does, but now, forget dog, we can get insect diseases. I mean, we are just breaking all the bonds and allowing everything to jump cross-species. Totally insane. Here's an example. If just putting ducks next to pigs in China and their feces runs together in slurries gives us almost all the superflu, just running those two viral groups together, imagine what splicing them does.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time till some superbug gets released. I mean, I'm sorry.
It is. That's why it's so important to know about how to keep your immune system strong, to where you can look at all of this stuff and all this fear-mongering and everything else out there, and not necessarily fear-mongering. I mean, I can't help it if I go out in my yard, living in Houston, where we have mosquitoes all over the place. As a matter of fact, just today, they confirmed somebody in Texas got the Zika virus from sexually transmitted, and now they're saying through saliva as well.
And by the way, that's what Dr. Boyle was saying 2 weeks ago.
Yes. Yeah, I watched that interview. That was great.
But he said that last Friday, but we were reading his papers a week and a half before that. So he had his sources saying this before it came out. And he's saying it is a bioweapon. It's been souped up. And now we have it directly linked to it. In fact, we should get him back on now with all this new info.
So the solution to that for everybody listening is just keep your immune system strong. You know, get lots of sleep. Don't stress out. Take vitamin C. Take some zinc, by the way, which is an anthroplex. You know, keep your body cleansed. Keep your self-healing mechanism strong. There's a lot of different herbs out there: oregano oil, iodine. There's silver.
They also admit that one flu shot cuts your immune system by 50% for at least a year. I mean, no wonder we're so sick. The vaccines people are taking lowers their immunity, and then they're incubators for all these bugs.
That's right. And I tell you another thing. I haven't looked into this, but it wouldn't surprise me if whatever company owns Off and all the toxic mosquito repellents, which just add to the problem even more, because now you have people spraying that stuff all over their body, all over their kids. And those are some of the most toxic pesticides and phthalates and fragrances and chemicals that are just going to alter your hormone levels and shut down or alter your endocrine system anyway. So if the mosquitoes and the Zika virus isn't bad, look at all the things that's going to come from the pollution in the water supplies from all the pesticides, and then all the people that are in fear and are spraying. I mean, I know actually people in Houston right now that are spraying their kids down before they go to school in the morning with Off.
Even though normal Zika is just a mild fever, are they worried their kids are about to get pregnant? I mean, don't you have to get bitten by and be actively dealing with Zika when a baby is gestating to actually have the problem?
I don't think we've really come to analyzing the different types of symptoms and problems we might be dealing with yet.
All right, stay there. Let's talk some about that on the other side. And we do have the Bill Gates zero population clip ready. When we come back, I'm Alex Jones, Infowars.com. Stay with us. Dr. Group is just blowing me away. I mean, I know the basics of all this, but I don't have time to sit there and read 50 pages of the company's own announcements, how they've imported these mosquitoes all over the world to the places where Zika's popping up. And the OX513A has a regulatory approval for import and testing and contained testing in Brazil, Cayman Islands, France, India, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, U.S., and Vietnam. Open field trials have taken place in both Grand Cayman and Malaysia and are currently also underway in Brazil.
Right there.
So they release the mosquitoes, and now Zika pops up. They're mosquitoes with Zika that are supposedly to fix Zika. But Bill Gates, the guy that wants to get rid of us, and notice in the TED Talk, he's like, we will reduce population by giving you better medical care. In fact, we have the full clip now, or the other part we didn't play, from the TED Talk. Here it is.
So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to zero. And that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. That's back from high school algebra. But let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, health care, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. But there we see an increase of about 1.3.
And then I'm going to make a whole thing on this because this is a weird wormhole of these Gates quotes over the years here and everybody's doing a great job. I just didn't do preparation before. But he then goes on to say we're going to reduce this to 0, and everybody laughs. So tonight on the news, we're going to have that. I'm going to shoot a special report on that if hell doesn't rain down from from heaven. Now, continuing here, Dr. Group, how do we reach out to people to get them to become aware that all of this is going on?
Well, I think the best way, I mean, all you're getting from the mainstream media is obviously not the truth. And I think with anything that could possibly threaten you or your children, you need to take it upon yourself. I mean, obviously watch your show, do some research, type in Zika virus, type in, I mean, you can trace it back just like I did. I mean, you can go to the Oxytech website and read all about it. It's not... It's right
ridiculous.
Out in the open. I mean,
why is no one saying they released genetically modified mosquitoes that all the top experts warned about that supposedly kill Zika, and now it's mutated and is worse?
I mean, the thing is, the research is out there. It's just what are they trying to accomplish here? I mean, obviously accomplish vaccinations, obviously accomplish fear, but I would say that just be aware and know what you need to do, how you can protect yourself, how can you keep your immune system strong, have antiviral or at least immune-boosting herbs ready.
And just know that whatever hysteria they drive isn't what keeps you safe. It's like the H1N1 flu bug 6 years ago that they said, take the shot, it protects you. Turns out that was a simulant in vaccines the year before, hidden on the company's own website. Again, I couldn't believe it. They released a simulant that wasn't even making people sick, that then lowered your immunity to other flus to then kill people.
Well, just think if you had a genetically modified mosquito with, who knows if the Zika virus, how many modifications have been done to that, to the RNA. And you have mosquitoes going around, and there's other viruses in people's blood, and you have a mosquito that goes into one person and injects this, and it's a genetically modified cells from the genetically modified mosquito going into you and mixing with other potential viruses in your blood or in the air or in animals.
Incredible,
so
incredible.
Dr. Group, snowball.
I'm going to come back with a Joe Biggs report. Going out to break, I'm going to play a short segment from it where he talks to these women, and they say they're voting for Hillary for girl power. Let's go out to break with that. Coming up in about 6-7 minutes, David Knight is going to be hosting. He's got a big show lined up. The feds are massing outside the Oregon refuge. Looks like something huge could happen there. He'll have local rancher Tom Davis and local reporter Michael Emery on. And he's got Ron Paul tried to stop the arming of BLM. He's got a bunch of articles on the Iowa aftermath, dirty money, trying to ban money. Women use the force in Europe to battle radical Islamics. So you've heard in the U.S. they tell women to urinate or vomit on someone trying to rape them. But in Europe, there's an actual video. Paul Watson has the article, Infowars.com, where they say use the force. Dr. Edward Group, our good friend, and, of course, the head of the Global Healing Center, thank you so much for your time today, my friend.
Thanks for having me on, Alex. Appreciate it.
Hopefully we'll get you on the nightly news if you have time. I know you've got more to cover. Here's Joe Biggs, and he was out dressed up as Hillary Clinton to talk to the Hillary supporters.
What difference at this point does it make? We came, we saw, he died.
A dead heat for all practical purposes, almost from the start to the finish.
Mrs. Clinton and Mr. Sanders is in a dead heat.
Did you know she won one of the little areas based on a coin toss?
At least 6 precincts resorted to a coin flip due to a tie.
Sorry, it just keeps happening.
A lozenge.
I swear to God, my health is fine. This is Hillary Clinton reporting for Infowars.com in downtown Austin, Texas. Now, I am tired. I'm very tired because I was just in Iowa last night where I beat Bernie Sanders in the Iowa caucus. Now, you might ask yourself, how can more people show up to Bernie Sanders events and less show up to mine and I still win? Well, guess what? I got that coin flip game going on right there, heads every time. Oh, again. Oh, well, it was actually tails, but I flipped it really quick. It's a sleight of hand trick. Us Clintons are really good at that. We learned how to gamble down in Arkansas. Well, we're going to go out here and talk to people and ask people if they like me or Bernie Sanders, or if they find it suspicious that I'm really good at flipping coins. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Hillary Clinton. How you doing? I'm kind of tired. I just got in from Iowa. Do you like Hillary Clinton?
No.
Well, why don't you like me?
Because you're a liar, a cheater, you're a mean lady.
Have you seen the Benghazi movie?
No.
Yeah, me neither. I slept through it the first time. All right, quick question. Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders?
Hillary Clinton.
So why are you voting for me?
Oh, are you Hillary?
Well, of course. You see my pantsuit? Come on.
God, you look beautiful.
Hillary Clinton, yes or no? No. You gonna vote for Hillary Clinton for me for president?
No.
Why not? I'm as honest as they come.
Well, you know, why am I voting for you?
Yeah.
Girl power.
Well, that's it. Some people say that I'm gonna be a great person for females. What do you think?
I don't know enough about Hillary to have an opinion, so I...
Really, you don't know anything about Hillary Clinton? Did you guys hear about what happened last night?
No, I didn't.
Well, I beat Bernie.
It's 50-50, no?
What do you mean, like this, with a coin toss? Did you see how I won last night, the Iowa caucus?
I think you probably cheated.
Well, how with this? You think you can beat me at a coin toss?
What's the most you ever lost on a coin toss? Sir? The most you ever lost on a coin toss.
Hey, what do you guys think, Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton?
It's a tie.
No, okay, well, guess what? This is how we fix that tiebreaker. This is what they did last night in the Iowa caucus. You ready? Call it in the air. Best out of 5. Oh, one for me. Call it in the air. Oh, there's 1. Oh, there's 2. Oh, tails. Oh, you got it. You're winning so far. All right, one more.
Okay. Heads.
See? I didn't win again. Well, we both tied again. Up. I guess I can't win at all. He won. Fair and square. Hillary Clinton loses in a coin toss with this guy. It's a little suspicious, huh? I would give this to you, but I'm not Bernie Sanders. What do you think? Hillary Clinton, me, or Bernie Sanders? Me or Bernie? Come on. Come on. Hey, you guys gonna vote for Hillary Clinton? I wouldn't vote for me either.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight in this 4th hour of the Alex Jones Radio Show. At the bottom of the hour, we're going to be talking to a rancher as well as a local reporter back in the Oregon area, back in Burns, Oregon, where the standoff was occurring. We're trying to reach out to people that are there. They contacted us, actually, yesterday, saying that they fear that an escalation is coming. The same type of thing that we heard from Lavoy Finicum the day before he was killed. He had an interview with the Oregon newspaper. He said, I don't understand why there's been the change in tenor. He asked the reporter, haven't you noticed this as well? We used to be able to get out and have a friendly conversation with the agents who are around here. Now they get out of their car with guns drawn. They're very hard attitude towards us. There's a buildup of troops and equipment. We have constant flyovers and drones watching us. The next day, he was shot and killed. Many people say that he was shot and killed with his hands up. And, of course, the video that was released by the FBI, very low res, aerial video without any footage, is very inconclusive. And it is contradicted by the statements of 2 eyewitnesses who were in the car. We talked about that a bit yesterday. We're going to talk to these people who are on the ground. They called me and told me that what they're experiencing on their own private property is far worse than what the rancher, Kurt Spencer, told us as we showed you that report earlier as he was talking about having to go through checkpoints. He said he'd never had a gun pointed at him in his life before. He talked about how he had been in Africa, and there were checkpoints there that were very worrisome. You didn't know if you were going to go get through those checkpoints. Nevertheless, the armed, militarized checkpoints in Africa, even there, they didn't point a gun at him. But we were told by the ranchers and others that we talked to that they're now going on private property, these ranchers, threatening them, pointing guns at them. So we're going to have that at the bottom of the hour. We'll also have a clip from Ron Paul 20 years ago where he asks, why is the BLM and other federal agencies, why are they being armed? What is going on here? And that was 20 years ago, 1997, actually 19 years ago. Today, I saw this article. I want to put this in as context before we get to the Ron Paul article. This is from Politico. Meet your unauthorized federal government. Very interesting. What they're talking about here, and this is their terms, a zombie bureaucracy. I would say what we're looking at is a zombie bureaucracy apocalypse. They point out the FBI, the DEA, the BATF have not been reauthorized by Congress since 2009. The State Department hasn't been reauthorized since 2003. The FTC, the National Weather Service, 1998 for the FTC, 1993 for the Weather Service. The Federal Election Commission has been operating with an expired authorization since 1981. So what's going on? Well, here's the bottom line. As I point out, every federal agency is supposed to operate under congressional authorization. They give them a set of rules, they set the priorities, they set the activities for the government. That is supposed to have a sunset clause on it so that when they expire, it gives them a chance to reconsider what the agency's mission is, to see whether they need to modernize it, whether they need to impose some controls because it's out of control. But now it's turned into a zombie government. You see, the Congress no longer writes the laws, and we've talked about this many times. They've abdicated that responsibility to the bureaucracies. The bureaucracies wrote 81,000 pages of federal rules last year. The Congress just creates these and then lets them go. They don't even bother to reauthorize them, let alone write the laws. They don't even bother to reauthorize the agencies that they've abdicated their lawmaking functions to. So what we have here truly is a zombie bureaucracy. It is a living, dead bureaucracy that is preying on our people, eating out their substance. They point out how this is expanding. They say 20 years ago, and that's about the time this clip that we're going to be playing from Ron Paul 20 years ago, it was only 10% of the discretionary spending of the government. And, of course, understand discretionary spending is distinguished from the welfare entitlement program. So, in other words, it's something that they have some direct control over. Only 10%. 20 years ago was consisted of unauthorized programs. Now it is well over a quarter of the programs meet that. Now they say Congress's failure to pass reauthorizations doesn't prevent government agencies from functioning. They can function as long as they get the money. You see, they keep giving them money, but they don't bother to pass the reauthorization. Why? Because our Congress, our government, is absolutely contemptuous of the rules. They don't follow any of the rules. They swear to the Constitution, but they don't follow any of the rules. We're going to have a signing tomorrow of the Trans-Pacific Partnership by Obama's representatives in New Zealand. They still say they have to ratify this, but of course, when you're talking about ratification, you're talking about a treaty, aren't you? There's a process in the Constitution for ratifying a treaty. They're ignoring that. All the people who voted for the fast-tracked trade promotion, TPA, the Trade Promotion Authorization, that's to fast-track this, all the people who voted for that said, we don't care about the constitutional process where we need 2/3 of the Senate to ratify a treaty. We're going to ignore that. We're going to say a simple majority of the Senate and the House, and we're not going to have any amendments allowed. We're not going to have any debate, no filibuster. It's got to be done within 20 hours of it being put to the floor. And once it's brought to the floor by leadership, you can't have any committee obfuscation of that, the typical process that would be there for a bill becoming a law. We're going to ignore all of that. We're going to ignore the process for ratifying a treaty, and we're just going to run this through. So we see this happening over and over again. But as I've pointed out, these bureaucracies, each of them, have become their own little fiefdom, their own little government. Not only do they write the laws with the approval of the Congress, the tacit approval, the abdication, I would say, allowing them to usurp this power, taxing us without representation, legislating without representation. They also have their own little armies. And this is what Ron Paul said 20 years ago.
Earlier this year, another member severely criticized me on the House floor for declaring on C-SPAN that indeed many Americans justifiably feared their own government. This fear has come from the police state mentality that prompted Ruby Ridge, Waco, and many other episodes of an errant federal government. Under the Constitution, there was never meant to be a federal police force. Even an FBI limited only to investigations was not accepted until this century. Yet today, fueled by the federal government's misdirected war on drugs, radical environmentalism, and the aggressive behavior of the nanny state, we have witnessed the massive buildup of a virtual army of armed regulators prowling the states where they have no legal authority. The sacrifice of individual responsibility and the concept of local government by the majority of American citizens has permitted the army of bureaucrats to thrive. We have depended on government for so much for so long that we as a people have become less vigilant of our liberties. And more immediate, The enforcement of the interventionist state requires a growing army of bureaucrats. Since groups demanding special favors from the federal government must abuse the rights and property of those who produce wealth and cherish liberty, real resentment is directed at the agents who come to eat out our substance. The natural consequence is for the intruders to arm themselves to protect against angry victims of government intrusion. Thanks to a recent article by Joseph Farah, director of the Western Journalism Center of Sacramento, California, in 1996 alone, at least 2,439 new federal cops were authorized to carry firearms. That takes the total up to nearly 60,000. Farah points out that these cops were not only in agencies like the FBI, but include the EPA, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the Army Corps of Engineers. Even Bruce Babbitt, according to Farah, wants to arm the Bureau of Land Management. Farah logically asks, when will the NEA have its armed art cops? This is a dangerous trend. It's ironic that the proliferation of guns in the hands of the bureaucrats is pushed by the anti-gun fanatics who hate the Second Amendment and would disarm every law-abiding American citizen. Yes, we need gun control. We need to disarm our bureaucrats, then abolish the agencies.
Isn't that true? Isn't that what we've seen in Oregon? We've seen people like the governor there, Kate Brown, people who hate the Second Amendment pushing for the government to use arms against the people to protect the government agents as they come in and intrude on the freedoms of the people in these areas. So we're going to have a interview at the bottom of the hour with people who are now saying that the BLM is stepping up their operations against the people the ranchers on their private property, that this is a massive buildup. This is far beyond 4 guys in a little remote wildlife refuge, which is there for bird watching in the middle of the winter, okay? This is not an emergency that we have to shut this down. But, of course, the governor there made it an emergency, said that she wanted this to happen. And we have now had both senators from Oregon, Ron Wyden is one of them, and we've had several congressmen, Democrat congressmen, all foes of the Second Amendment, saying that they need to not only teach these people a lesson, but they need to teach the people in Nevada that were at Bunkerville a lesson. That's what this has all been about from the very beginning. We could see this happening. I talked about it. Alex Jones talked about it. We said they're being set up. This is an act of revenge. But now it is getting beyond that. It is going to the ranchers in the other area because they understand what is going on, what the government is doing, what the end game is with Agenda 21. And that's what we're going to be talking to the ranchers about. Now, when we look at the government that is out of control, this unauthorized zombie government, as Politico call them, that's their term, not mine. They're a zombie government. I'm just saying it's a zombie bureaucracy apocalypse. That's the apocalypse part I see happening. But, of course, as I mentioned, we've got all these agencies that don't even bother to follow the law to reauthorize them. They just let them write the rules. They arm them. Remember, it was a few years ago, we had a situation where, and in this article, Ron Paul was saying 20 years ago, when are they going to arm the NEA, the National Endowment for the Arts? Well, they armed the education bureaucracy. They had them perform a SWAT team arrest on a family at dark 30, dragging the family out, putting them on their face, guns drawn to their head, because they're looking for the mother who no longer lived there that was behind on her student loans. A year earlier, the Washington Post had said, why is the Department of Education putting out RFPs for shotguns, for bulletproof vests, for SWAT equipment? That's why. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight. We're going to be talking to some people on the ground in Oregon, ranchers who are saying that it's not just martial law roadblocks that are being put up by the federal government. They're actually coming on to private property and intimidating, pointing guns at people who are ranchers there, coming onto their own personal property. So we're going to be talking to them in the next segment. Before we do, I want to cover some political news. And before we get to that, I just want to let you know that we've now introduced a new product, Anthroplex. This is a twice-daily pill. It's a formulation for men, a perfect pairing to super male vitality, which, of course, is in liquid form. This is a twice-daily pill formulation. It synergistically works with super male vitality using key ingredients you've been asking for in a newly balanced blend of other organic herbs. And for a limited time, when you buy the synergistic duo of Anthroplex and super male vitality together at InfoWarsLife.com, you'll get 15% off and free shipping. And I would remind you as well that we still have the special of free shipping on all orders of $50 or more. Again, that's at InfoWarsLife.com. The new special with a 15% off our new product, Anthroplex, bought with Super Male Vitality. You get 15% off and free shipping. And there's also free shipping on all orders of $50 or more. Now, as we were just talking in the last segment about this story that was on Politico, talking about how the government doesn't even bother to reauthorize these massive federal agencies. Over a quarter of the agencies are not authorized anymore, just operating without any authorization from Congress. And the Congress allows them to write the laws, allows them to become armed bureaucracies coming after people. And in many cases, they have their own little courts where they accuse you. You don't have the right to a due process described in the Constitution. We truly do have a lawless government, and we have a political candidate, Hillary Clinton, who is our lawless candidate for president. She says here, cybersecurity, and one of the most ironic articles I've seen yet. Clinton says cybersecurity is one of our most important challenges for the next president. No, Hillary, it's the most important challenge for you to become president because you have ignored cybersecurity, and yet you use this, as the rest of the government does, the threat of cybersecurity to spy on everyone without a warrant, to destroy all of the individual liberties that are explicitly protected by the Constitution. They don't give us those liberties, but the Constitution specifically protects those. She says, we first have to figure out how to create what would be an understanding with these nations that we will not tolerate their cyber theft, their cyber evasiveness. We certainly would never, ever sit still for a cyber attack. You tell them, Hillary, because, you know, just tell them, I don't ever want to see you peeking at my private unsecured server again. Don't ever look at that again. You nasty peeping Toms all over the world. Everybody is looking at the Secretary of State's information, okay? It's one of the highest value targets. And yet she puts all this stuff on a private server that has absolutely no protection and then has the audacity to say that cybersecurity is our most important challenge. Yes, it's a challenge when you've got people at the top who don't care about security, who don't care about top secret, telling their subordinates to, well, okay, send that over to me. Oh, we can't do it because it's top secret. Just take that off and fax it over to me or whatever, email it to me. And again, this is on a day where we now have 7 additional Clinton emails to be marked top secret. Every day, there are more that come out that are top secret or even above top secret. It's absolutely amazing, the hypocrisy, the cynicism, and I guess you could say the irony involved in all of this. It's absolutely insane. Meanwhile, we see Trump saying that he will probably sue over the results of the Iowa caucus, talking about how what Ted Cruz did to Ben Carson was truly voter fraud. I agree. I think that is a kind of voter fraud. When you, as the caucuses were starting, right at 7 o'clock, the Ted Cruz campaign, and of course their surrogate, Steve King there, who made accusations without backing them up, saying that Trump had bought off Sarah Palin. They said, show me the evidence, and he doesn't do it. Well, that same guy, Steve King, also tweets out and says, hey, Ben Carson's getting out of the race. You need to know, and you need to tell everybody in your caucus. And of course, it's a very different situation in a caucus than it is at a polling situation, because everybody comes together, they hear speeches about the different candidates, and then they all vote en masse right there at that time, instead of a polling situation where people are coming in over an entire day, or in many cases multiple days to vote, okay, because you can do early voting with all these primaries. So it's a very different situation. And if you go in there and are telling everybody falsely that Ben Carson is going to be dropping out and doing it as Stephen King did, even after they were told, that, I think, truly is voter fraud. And Ben Carson is saying, hey, as Christians, we accept other people's apologies, but we also have to ask ourselves, is this acceptable to us, the American people, or should there be some accountability? He said there should be consequences for some of these things. You don't just say, okay, let's move on. He says the damage was done to me, to Ben Carson. It wasn't done to Cruz. And as Trump points out, he says, this is total voter fraud, misleading people at the polls. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight. In this segment, we have a couple of people calling us from the Oregon standoff. I was there last week along with Joe Biggs following the shooting of Lavoy Finicum. I had them contact me yesterday. This is Tom Davis, a local rancher, as well as Michael Emery, who's with the Voice of Idaho News, a local news organization. They called me with some very troubling information. Of course, you've possibly seen the video that we have on Infowars.com. The rancher who was going through the checkpoint as we were on the radio program with Alex doing a live broadcast. I had talked to Alex, and Joe Biggs was talking to him. And at that point, a rancher came through the checkpoint, and we went over and started asking him questions about what it was like to go through that checkpoint. And he was absolutely amazed. The first time he said he had ever had guns pointed at him. He and his wife were going through the checkpoint. They shined lights on them. They told them to get out of the car, have their ID ready. He said they had snipers and other people pointing guns at them the entire time they checked their ID. He'd been in Africa, had never experienced that. But yesterday, Tom Davis, a local rancher, contacted me and said that there is more troubling stuff going on there now. So I wanted to talk to the two of them, get an update as to what is happening on the ground there. We're hearing that there is a buildup of federal forces in the area. Joining us now are Michael Emery of the Voice of Idaho News and Tom Davis, a local rancher. I believe Tom Davis is there at the microphone at the moment. Tom? Doing fine. Tell me and tell the audience what you were saying yesterday about what is going on private property, because, of course, we're very troubled about the way they're treating local people going through these roadblocks, these checkpoints. Every time there's an incident, we see the government rush to create a kind of martial law scenario. But tell us what's going on private property.
Okay, down there on the Narrows, going down to Narrows, right by past Double O Road, they had a checkpoint set up where you got to go through the checkpoint. One rancher and his daughters were going through the checkpoint, young girls. They were stopped, and the government, with their weapons, all ready to go, I told them to get out of their vehicles, searched them, search their IDs, search the young girls, which is inappropriate to begin with. This is America. We're not in communist Russia or anything.
That's right.
And they made them walk across, took their vehicle, drove it down a ways, and made them walk in the rain to the vehicle after they inspected them to make sure they were safe with guns pointed at them.
Wow. Wow. So the federal agents drove the vehicle and took it down. Now, you told me about another incident with a man who was taking video at some point.
There was a gentleman taking videos at the rally up at the courthouse the other day, Monday. He was taking video, and he shined it over at the compound of the occupiers, the FBI and that. And he walked over, was videoing them, and one of those gentlemen with his M16 pointed at him, came up to him and told him to drop his cell phone and picture down, stomp on it, and destroy it. The guy said, "No, it's mine." And he says, "Well, if you don't drop it and destroy it, I will shove it up your and you won't have it." And then he said, "And I'll put a bullet through you." The guy was scared. He backed up, but still continued taking the picture, and he backed off from that gentleman with his rifle. I don't know who he was. He said he was FBI, but I doubt it. And it was kind of terrifying to him. He was shaking. He was so nervous.
Well, you need to get that video to us. We'll put that up on our site if you can get that to us. You said when I talked to you yesterday that you and Michael Emery were both concerned that there is an escalation there that is not necessarily aimed at the 4 remaining people in that wildlife refuge.
Yeah, there's a constant buildup. We have Black Hawk helicopters showing up. We have Apache helicopters showing up. Those are war machines. They're for war. Yeah. We have MRAP showing up.
Yeah, I mean, Apache helicopter, that's the sort of thing they use in Somalia, in Black Hawk Down. Basically, the guns follow the eyes of the pilot, and they're ready to shoot on command. I mean, that's a highly militarized weapon. We've got 4 people, basically, these guys that don't seem to be much of a threat to anybody except themselves, out in a very remote location, and they bring in Apache helicopters. That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, they're friends of mine down there across the county line where they want to do the monument for in Malheur County. They want to steal 2.5 million acres. They've been seeing Blackhawks and Apaches circling their ranches constantly every day, 2 to 3 of them circling their ranches. And then they're starting to get scared. They're being intimidated. We have, over in Crane, we have aircraft flying down the Crane Valley and that. And I don't know what those big aircrafts are doing flying over Crane, Oregon, and then they turn around and they come back across. If it's some type of surveillance plane, nobody knows. but it's just unusual for these big planes to be flying around in that area.
Now, you said that there was possibly an event that was going to be taking place tomorrow. Tell us about that.
It's just a gathering of people and that to protest, and the FBI, we're basically, go home. We don't need you here. We don't need all this military buildup. We don't need MRAPs here. We don't need the snipers. I was doing the interview and I was sitting there watching 28 snipers packing in their personal weapons into the compound where they took over a school. And they're all up in the compound as command headquarters by our courthouse.
Now,
and we're just...
Even though they have arrested the majority of the people that were there, or they have now gone home, and there's only 4 people in that wildlife refuge, you've seen the federal government continue to build up forces in the area. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. We've seen MRAPs coming in yesterday past it. I live out here on 20 and that coming in from Bend. Constant buildup of more and more MRAPs showing up.
Well, you know, with the death of Lavoy Finicum, we don't want to ignore that. But Lavoy Finicum, I think, himself would want us to continue to focus on the underlying issues that he was trying to protest, that he was trying to educate people about. Of course, they were on their way to a meeting of 400 people in an adjacent county when they were arrested, the people that were with him, and when he was shot. Tell me about the general mood of the community there.
The general mood is we're outraged, we're shocked, and well-spoken, very versed man was killed for no reason at all. They were going to a meeting of the people. In Harney County, we have one gentleman, he's 79 years old, going on 80. On Saturday, he called up and said he was going down to the protest, the ambush and the assassination of Lavoy Finicum. And so we all went down there to support him. And it was pretty cool seeing a father and his 2 sons standing there against the government and the people coming together to join with him.
Yeah, tell us about that meeting. What did you know about the meeting that was going to be taking place in John Day, Oregon, the one that they were on their way to?
It was a constitutional meeting talking about the Constitution and all the land grabs that's going in our country. We were right behind. We were about 3 miles behind behind Amon and behind Lavoy when they were headed up there. We got turned around at the junction by FBI, state police, and Harney County Sheriff's Office, all packing heavily armed weapons that you wouldn't use in a civil matter. This was a military buildup. And they turned us around, and I got a phone call right then. I have some horses quarter mile down from that blockade. And I had an older horse. He was old. He lived a good life. But he was dying. He was, he's on his last leg. And he was laying there, and there was no way we could put him out of the misery. We couldn't get a hold of the veterinary to get drugs to put him out of his misery. And we was thinking about just dispatching him and putting him down. But if we would have, we'd have had the cops all around us. We were so close to that barricade. And I was down at a meeting the following morning, and I told the sheriff I had a horse to put down that was dying slow death, and there was nothing I could do. I couldn't do nothing but, put him down with a bullet. And the sheriff responded, well, I'm glad you didn't, because we'd have been over there, and we'd have probably shot you thinking it was a terrorist activity or something.
That's just amazing. That's just amazing, because nothing had happened to make the federal authorities believe that they were under any threat. Nobody had ever used any weapons. They were in a remote location. And we got to remember that the only violence that's occurred here has been on the part of the federal authorities. But talk to me about the Hammonds. You know the Hammonds in the area, and that's really what was the touch point that set this all off, the fact that the BLM and the Forestry Services would send them to jail as arsonists and terrorists when they lit a backfire that burned only 139 acres to protect their own property, when there were forest fires that year that were over 3 million acres burned in Oregon, and the BLM itself had used backfires as a tool of fire control, destroying private property. And yet they take these 2 individuals and label them as arsonists and terrorists so they can get a mandatory minimum of 5 years. The judge said it offended his sensibilities. Tell us about the Hammonds and what you know about that.
Dwight and Susie, they're good people. They're good friends of mine. Back in the 90s, when this all really started kicking off, the Dwights had a piece of land. They filed for the water rights on all their land. the federal government, through the refuge, went down and convinced the Oregon state government that wildlife has priority over the water compared to anybody else, compared to your livestock and your ranches and that. So the government, the state of Oregon, being a liberal state, gave the refuge permission water rights, and they started fencing off the water holes so the cows couldn't water. And then they started blocking roads that Hammond, they had a small piece of BLM between their privates. To get to their private land, they started fencing off the roads with gates and with barricades to keep the Hammonds from checking on their cows, to feed their cows and take care of their cows and water their cows. They put a fence around the water hole. The Hammonds wanted to remove that fence, and that started, the sheriff went down there and started harassing them, Sheriff Dave Blair. And it just kept escalating. The more the government wanted that place, the more they started harassing them. The place is adjacent to the Malheur Refuge and the Steens Mountain Monument that Bill Clinton made after a geological survey, and that found precious minerals, uranium, gold, except natural gases on their land. The government wanted to take hold of the land, so they were trying to break them through intimidation. And then they went and had this fire situation, was a backburn, to control take care of the forage so the fire didn't travel into the ranch, protect the ranch. And the BLM came at them. They had permission. They called the BLM. They called the fire marshal. Gave them permission to do it. But 5 years later, they came back at them and called them terrorists for burning that pasture to take care of any forage, so the fire didn't travel into their ranch and destroyed their houses.
What do you think is What do you think is the final objective of the BLM? Because we've seen this type of thing happen before. We've seen testimony that was put up. We put it up on our site of a land officer that's with the Park Services, retiring and moving from one location. Actually, she wasn't retiring out of the service. She was just retiring from one location, moving to another, talking about how the BLM, the land people, said, we're the bad guys. We're the ones who take people's property. We always pay what far less than it's worth, talking about how they had taken something that was appraised for over $40 million from a couple of miners who had been in World War II. They were elderly miners. They got it for just $2.5 million instead of the $40 million that it was appraised at, bragging about the over 100,000 acres that this one individual had taken, and they labeled her the acquisition queen. What is their end game with this, you believe?
Their end game is to control the land. As they told the Hammonds, if they sign over the rights of their ranch, basically give it to the government, they would not be persecuted. Right there is a big red flag.
Yeah.
You want that ranch so bad that you're going to persecute these guys and send them into bankruptcy and then steal the land with first right of refusal that they forced the Hammonds to sign. But yet you offer them this deal. You sign over the ranch, we won't persecute. That shows how much of a scam this whole thing was.
And I talked to a logger down in John Day. His name is Tad Halp. And he was talking about how they have pushed the logging industry essentially into bankruptcy. Very few people there in that town have jobs anymore unless they work for the state or federal government. They put regulations in there that have not only restricted the loggers, but at the same time have increased exponentially the fire danger. They allow so much deadwood to be there, they won't even allow the loggers to take the deadwood out for the preservation of the forest. And they could preserve the forest. They could allow people to earn a living as they have in the past. That was what was good management about the area. It was a win-win situation all the way around. But it seems like the federal government would rather burn the forest down so they can burn out these people who are making a living out of that area. People who are using it even for recreational use are not going to have the use of these forests if the BLM allows them to burn down.
Yes, well, I can point you right up here into Lemon Lake where I was running cows. A fire came through in 2007. It was a big fire, burned 187,000 acres at the complex. In that fire, after they were done, the government paid contractors to build fence. The fence cost us $21,000 per fence per mile to remove the old fence and put in new fence. But at the same time, the BLM wanted to take the trees back from those fences that we paid that much money for on 90 miles of fence, move trees back a tree and a half. So we didn't have old burnt trees falling on the fence. Well, the Oregon Natural Desert Association, whatever they call themselves, and Sierra Club sued them, and they couldn't cut back the trees. And then they wanted to clear up the lumber and then sued them again. And they couldn't take only 150 feet off the roads, the lumber, which left a lot of lumber sitting up there, big honking trees, big trees, laying up there burnt. That's falling across the fence they just put up the following year. We was repairing fences like crazy from damaged trees coming across.
Wow.
And they left all those trees up there to be, as I say, fuel for the next fire. The next fire we get up in that country, Burns is probably going to go because that fire always travels towards Burns. Burns will probably go because it's going to be such a buildup of fuel up there. Dead trees. That is amazing. Riding horses, pushing cows, you're afraid of trees falling over you as you're going through there from the wind damage and that.
Yeah. Yeah, and as Tad Halp, the logger, was telling me, and of course he's worked in this industry his entire life, he was saying that typically you would want to have no more than about 2 tons of fuel, meaning that's all the dead matter, the trees, the limbs, and leaves, and that sort of thing. He said the BLM, or the Forestry Service's standards were 6 to 10, but he goes, in reality, they allowed up to 500 tons. So they're allowing up to 250 times what he would believe would be safe, or even by their highest numbers, it would still be about 50 times what they say is safe. So that's why they're having these massive fires. I believe they had the largest fire ever this last summer that basically wiped out his private property as well as a lot of public lands. We're seeing that over and over again. Well, we're going to come. We got to take a break, Tom, and we're talking to Tom Davis, a rancher that is in the Oregon area, talking about what they're really seeing in this area. When we come back, I want to talk briefly to Michael Emery. He's been there reporting on this situation from the very beginning. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, and we're going to be going back to some people on the ground in Oregon, where we have seen the protests, the standoff, the killing of Lavoy Finicum, and they are still, even after there's only 4 people left at this reservation in protest, they are still escalating force there. So we wanted to talk to some of the people there. They contacted us, actually, and said we're very concerned about what's going on here. So we're going to talk to Michael Emery. He's been there since this began with the Hammonds. I want to ask him what he has seen that the mainstream media hasn't told us about, or things that he has seen that the mainstream media has told us lies about. We're going to go to him in just a moment. Real quickly, we have a new product at InfoWarsLife.com, Anthroplex. It works synergistically with Super Male Vitality. It is a pill formulation that works with Super Male Vitality as a liquid supplement. It has the key ingredients you've been asking for in a newly balanced blend of other organic herbs. And for a limited time, when you buy the synergistic duo of Anthroplex and Super Male Vitality together at InfoWarsLife.com, you'll get 15% off and free shipping as a chance for you to try this new supplement that works synergistically with Super Male Vitality. Get it at 15% off when you buy the two together and free shipping. And we still have the offer of free shipping on all orders of $50 or more at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com. Going back to Oregon, I want to talk to Michael Emery. He's with the Voice of Idaho News. He's been covering this for the local news there since this all began. Mr. Emery, tell us what you would like to. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so give us the highlights of what you would like people to know that hasn't really come out so far.
Well, we have a massive amount of propaganda going on out here that people are hungry for the news, and it seems to me that there's just such a disconnection between mainstream and what's really going on. And to wrap this up, good officers are out here trying to do the right thing, and they brought us White House assets in to stop but the Bundys with evidence that was going to the Grant County Sheriff to take over this case. That's what this is all about. See, the redress of grievance was what this is all about. And within that redress of grievance, it had prosecuting attorneys and stuff that would go to jail. That's what this is about.
So let's give the let's break this down for people who are listening to this. Now, a lot of this stuff in Burns, Oregon, that was happening in Harney County. On the day that they were headed to this meeting with 400 people, they were headed headed to neighboring Grant County, and you're telling me that there were good officers who were trying to get this jurisdiction relocated, or this whole case relocated to Grant County to talk to that sheriff at the time that they arrested those people there and shot and killed Lavoy Finicum.
That's exactly right. They had evidence, too, that we still have available that they didn't get. And this is an ongoing situation. What this is a hostile environment where they do not want due process of law. That's what this is about. And the 3%ers and the PPN are trying to protect the people out here. And I can tell everybody out there that we are in very dire straits. We're doing what we can. And don't believe what the mainstream's saying.
Yeah, and we've seen testimony from Victoria Sharp, also heard from Shauna Cox. Other people have had interviews with them. And then we saw an interview yesterday with CNN. What did you think about that? It looked like they were really trying to discredit Victoria Sharp, this 18-year-old singer, part of a family gospel singer group that was going to that meeting. What did you think about that interview? And we've only got about 20 seconds left.
Well, I would say that everybody gave up, and they said, don't shoot. We have women and children. And the federal government decided to fire upon that vehicle. She has all the credibility in the world.
Yeah.
Anybody that would discredit her, I have pity for her.
It's absolutely amazing when they come out and say that they had to shoot him, that he was a threat, that they had to then subsequently shoot that car repeatedly, and yet the first officer that you see there is behind that car. Does he really think that car is a threat? I mean, he's going after Lavoy Finicum and then don't shoot at him until later. Thank you for joining us. Join us tonight at 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for the InfoWars Nightly News. Sha'Carri Jackson will be hosting.
Clean, pure drinking water. You can't survive without it. But where do you get it? Alexa Pure Pro is a brand new, groundbreaking, gravity-fed water filtration system that is like no other. The Alexa Pure Pro transforms water from virtually any fresh source into clean, healthy drinking water, pairing the unprecedented superfiltration power of an all-new gravity block core with a hybrid chromatic shell. It removes up to 99.999% of impurities, including bacteria, viruses, fluoride, disinfectants, volatile organic contaminants, and hormones. Filter capacity up to 5,000 gallons. Stainless steel construction, easy assembly, low maintenance. Replacement filters are simple to install. And now, as part of an exclusive limited time introductory offer, you can save $20 off the retail price and get free shipping. This is a limited time offer, so order your unit today and receive free shipping and $20 off. Go to InfoWarsStore.com or call 888-253-3139.